welcome everyone. Today is Thursday, August 14th, and this is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors. Do I have a motion to establish the agenda as posted? So moved. All in favor of establishing the agenda as posted, please say aye. 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 All opposed, say nay. So that's me. So, oh, great. That was a lot. Okay. That's 5-0. So that establishes the agenda. Right. Sure.
The first recognition I have is if you listen very quietly, you can hear the sound of school because the band is back. That is the official sound at the start of the school year for all of us, is when the band is playing. The PA starts back on. We're hearing the sports teams and other groups start to assemble. And so it's always an exciting time for us here in the school district. Just a couple of recognitions before I bring forward our three newest administrators. Just a recognition to the entire team who works throughout the summer to prepare the schools. The schools, if you haven't been in them right now or haven't had a chance to be in them, they look amazing inside and out. And that's a lot of tireless work by Tony Kuhn and the crew. The painting that we'll bring before the school board with pictures and work on the pool, that's in September, but they look absolutely fantastic. So I just want to recognize Tony and our entire facilities team. Our board reps are not here tonight. They both are busy, but I've been meeting with our newest board rep, Brody Newcomer, along with Lucy, and they're gearing up for the year. For the second year in a row, they're going to be coming forward, or they'll be producing and putting out information to welcome back our new students to Mercer High School who weren't here last year. We have a number of them who they'll welcome in. And with that, then I want to bring up our three newest administrators. I think they're there. Come on forward up to the table. I'll start the nearest to me and kind of work the other direction. We have three openings in our school district, and the first was Mercer High School had an opening for our assistant principal position, and so we posted that, collected a number of candidates from all around the region, and I'm pleased to introduce you to Mr. Matt Steen. Matt comes to us from the Issaquah School District, where he was a teacher and taught for a number of years in their social studies department at Skyline High School, but then also did admin intern work both in an elementary setting and the high school setting. So Matt, welcome. I do want to give you a chance to say hello to the board and introduce yourself more. And it's just been great to have him. He is absolutely enthusiastic and raring to go. So great to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. I appreciate that. Yeah, I am incredibly excited to be a part of this district. I spent 11 years in the Issaquah district teaching there. I was also dean of students for a year as well. Taught 1 year in the Edmonds School District as well. It's a second career for me. So I'm incredibly excited to be a part of this district, and I can't wait for the kids to get back in the classroom and start working with those kids again. I've had the pleasure of having the band right outside my office this week, and it's been delightful. So I'm really excited to be a part of this district.
Great. Next to him is Randy Fielding. Randy's coming to us, our newest transplant here from Arizona, where she's been serving and teaching in a number of different capacities, teaching in the high school as a special ed teacher. But then most recently, she's coming out of a building as an elementary principal, coming into our role as assistant director of special services, special education. I love that she brings both a secondary and an elementary lens, brings building level leadership as well as teaching experience. And so it's been a whirlwind for her, as it wasn't necessarily on her agenda to move quite this soon, but when the opportunity arose, we were able to snatch her out of Arizona and bring her up here. So Randy, with that, love to hear more about you, and welcome to our school district.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that introduction. I'm also so excited to be here. Just moved from Arizona, so we were looking for new opportunities for family reasons, as well as I was really looking to find a location in the state that shared my values of equity and really caring for every single child. So as I was researching the state, Mercer Island really jumped out to me as a place where kids are safe, kids are well cared for, and the values that are represented on the website are absolutely demonstrated and enacted in real life. So it's just a tremendous place to be, and I feel very honored to have been selected as a district leader, and I'm so grateful for the team and the welcomes that I've received, and I just can't wait to dig in.
And next to her is Jennifer Cleves. Jennifer started her career in the Bellevue School District, and after a few years teaching, took her show on the road to Colorado, where she continued as a teacher, then a coach, and then into building level administration, where she was eventually a principal down in Colorado Springs. And after a period of time, all in kind of the elementary realm, she decided she wanted to move back and be closer to family. And so she moved back, and it was not part of her plan as she's described it. She became a middle school principal in the Lake Washington School District. And so she's been for the past 4 years working as a middle school principal. I think that too, all three of them speak to the different leveled experiences that they all bring coincidentally, but I think it's going to add great value. And so as many people know, our first search for a principal at Lake Ridge did not yield a candidate that we thought would be a great fit. So when we reposted it, we got some returning candidates and we got some new ones, and Jennifer was one of them and rose right to the top. And so we're thrilled to have her, and I think she's excited to be back in elementary. Even though middle school is great, no offense to our middle school team and those of you who've been in it. But elementary is also a special place. So welcome, Jennifer. More about you.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. Thank you so much for having us here today for introductions. I'm honored to be selected to be the next principal at Lake Ridge. I'm very excited to work with the staff, the students, and the families at Lake Ridge. As you know, Lake Ridge is a very special place, and I am delighted to be able to continue the good work that is already happening there. I'm already immersing myself in all things lions. I'm learning all kinds of things about lions. And so, as you know, that's the mascot. So that's been fun to try to tie that theme into our TBIS and celebrations and recognitions and that kind of thing. It's true, I did accidentally become a middle school principal. It's a great story if you want to hear it sometime, but I really, while I did enjoy the middle school and loved my staff at Finn Hill Middle School, I really missed being with the younger students, where losing a tooth is front page news. And so I really wanted to come back and be with our younger students. So thank you for the warm welcome, and I'm delighted to be part of the district.
So with that, if everyone would please join me in welcoming our three newest admitted. Yes, absolutely.
Because Matt, you said this was the second career for you.
Yeah.
You can't just leave us hanging.
Oh, well, so in my undergrad, I was on the path to education, and life took me in a different direction. I got married and had a family young. And so I ended up in the logistics world in distribution beverage business.
Mhm.
So I did that for about 15 years and all sorts of roles in that world
Skills
too.
are probably still coming very handy.
Oh, yeah, real world applications. So, yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Welcome everyone. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll roll right in, Superintendent. Great. Welcome everyone who's here this evening. This has obviously been a busy and challenging week or so that we've had as a community. But I'd be remiss not to remind everyone, been a challenging probably decade for an individual in our schools, in our school district, who's a former student and now an amazing adult doing great things in the world. I do want to read some statements that I've written, and they're really extensions of what I shared with the community last Friday ahead of the stories that were written by journalists and then subsequently added on to. So I want to begin by addressing our students, past and present. You are the reason we build and maintain the schools. You are the reason we choose education as a career. And you are the reason we show up each day ready to provide a safe and supportive education environment for you to thrive. You will always be the primary lens through which I make decisions as your superintendent. To our community as a whole, Mr. Twombly's conduct with a student in 2015-16 was appalling, beyond inappropriate, and a violation of the trusting responsibility we assume as educators to safeguard our students. The information provided about Mr. Twombly's actions last Friday evoked a range of emotions from those who either had him as a teacher, knew him within the high school as a parent, or worked alongside him as a colleague in our schools. Your feelings of shock, disbelief, anger, confusion, betrayal, and sadness are real and justified, and I share them with you. Though school is not in session, you may still reach out to Principal Wold, any of our school administrators, MI Youth and Family Services, or me. Below, I'm providing you, and this will be in our publication tomorrow, links with additional access points for resources, both internal and external. Our former student, once a victim and now survivor, has my utmost respect. Since the first contact we had with her following the police investigation, we committed to uphold her two core requests. One, not to have her story told by others, and two, protect current and future students by not allowing Mr. Twombly to teach at the high school or, to the extent we could, anywhere else. Up until leaks to the press and subsequent contacts made by the writers of the stories released Monday, we held true to the desire of our student. To reiterate my message on August 8th, from the first evening I learned from the allegations in December 2023, through the conclusion of the findings of the Mercer Island Police, the King County Prosecuting Attorney, and our own internal investigation, we prioritized four things. First, the affected student, who is now an adult. Our first and most urgent concern was the well-being of her and to fulfill her requests. Current students, number two. We took immediate action to protect our current students. Mr. Twombly was placed on administrative leave the same night we were informed of the allegations, and he did not and has not worked with or interacted with students since. Number three, previous students. We investigated to determine if there were additional students impacted or other victims we could identify. Neither the police nor our own investigation found evidence of other victims. Four, Mr. Twombly's teaching status. Consistent with the objective to prevent Mr. Twombly from working with any student, I notified the Office of Professional Practice recommending they review Mr. Twombly's conduct and consider revoking his license. Mr. Twombly is no longer certified to teach in the state of Washington. As superintendent of our school district, incidents that may have occurred before my tenure are still my responsibility to address and lead through when they impact students, staff, or the community. I understand people want to know why certain decisions were made and who are questioning our motivations. Our focus has always been on honoring the student at the center of this horrible situation by safeguarding her privacy, protecting students, and following the law. The truth is important, so I'd like to address questions circulating in the community. Question one, why didn't you inform the community about Mr. Twombly in 2023 or following investigations completed in 2024? We certainly considered whether or not to bring those investigations and conclusions forward to our community. In the end, our students' wishes were the priority. I understand that this decision may be difficult for some to accept, but our primary moral obligation was to protect the person who had the most at stake. We believed that public disclosure would not have made anyone safe or anyone less safe, but it could have caused further harm to the one student we knew had been hurt and asked for the matter not to be made public. Why wasn't Mr. Twombly fired immediately? The night we learned of the allegations, Mr. Twombly was placed on paid administrative leave. This ensured he had no access to students while we supported the police investigation and then conducted our own. We also made a report to Child Protective Services, our responsibility as mandatory reporters. And later in the investigation, as noted, we took the additional step of reporting to the Office of Professional Practice. We did not immediately begin our internal investigation so that Mercer Island Police could proceed without risk of interference. Once the police completed their work and the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office declined to file charges due to the statute of limitations, we initiated our own investigation. Like all public employees, Mr. Twombly had a right to due process. Both law enforcement and our independent investigator found the former student to be credible. Based on those findings, we began the process of terminating his employment. However, it became clear that Mr. Twombly intended to contest that decision. A drawn-out legal process would likely have forced our former student to relive deeply personal trauma, and it carried the risk, however small, that he could return to the classroom. She had already endured more than any student should ever, and even a slight chance he could return to our schools was unacceptable. Mr. Twombly's leave ended last August when we secured a binding separation agreement that ensured Mr. Twombly would never teach in our district again. And this outcome provided certainty, protected the student from further harm, and honored what she told us she wanted from the very beginning. This was not a compromise. It was a necessary step to protect our students and community. Another question, why haven't you made sure Mr. Twombly cannot teach in other states? This district does not have legal authority to block someone from applying for licensure in another state. However, we have done everything in our power under Washington law to protect students. This means Mr. Twombly is no longer licensed to teach in Washington, and we can confidently say that based on the information we would share, we would not rehire him, and sincerely doubt any other district would either. The settlement agreement reached does not restrict our ability to answer questions from future employers truthfully. Why didn't the district cooperate with King County Prosecuting Attorney's Victim Advocacy Group? The district did participate fully in the meeting convened by the King County Prosecutor's Office in April 2024 after they declined to prosecute. This meeting included law enforcement, a victim advocate, a representative from Harborview Abuse and Trauma Center, and our outside legal counsel. We believed it was important to ensure that our participation in this process was accurate, respectful, and aligned with our legal and ethical responsibilities. At every stage, our priority was to support the survivor and uphold the integrity of the investigative process, even if King County Prosecuting Attorney did not move forward with those charges. The term multi-victim meeting was used in some materials, but it does not mean that multiple victims were identified in this case. According to King County Prosecutor's Office, this terminology is standard for their special assault unit, regardless of the number of identified victims. Finally, what was the board's role? Shocked and horrified at what I had just learned, Interim Board President Glowitz was the first person I notified after speaking with Mr. Wold and Ms. Battersby in December 2023. It was and continues to be my practice to share significant information with the board president in a timely manner, and I asked that we arrange for a special meeting and executive session the following week since school was heading into winter break. Recent media reports suggest all members of the board were not informed throughout the process, so let me address this. Each board member was notified and invited to any and all executive sessions where this matter was discussed. The board spent time bringing a new member up to speed when the results of the 2022 school board election were delayed until January 2023. And when a board member was unable to attend an executive session during the proceedings, I arranged for a separate meeting with that person to share the same information. The board from December 2023 through last fall was united in support of the investigations and decisions regarding Mr. Twombly and the district's decisions to protect the victim. When asked to provide information, we did. So where others want to cast doubt and tear us down, I am here to counter with a message that assures our community the Mercer Island School District is as strong as ever, and affirm why we should be hopeful, not hopeless, for the future. Realtors continue to remind me the number one reason they hear from clients with families about why Mercer Island is where they want to be, it's the school district. Former students of our schools moved back to raise their own children because of the educational experience they had as students. In no other district have I observed the phenomenon of graduates claiming they will never return back to the island, only to do so 10 years later to the degree they do here on Mercer Island. And I believe this was referred to by the locals as MI Salmon coming back to spawn. Alumni contacting me in the past week, even recent graduates within the past couple of years, expressed their sadness, but also affirmed what an amazing school district they believe we have. I stand by the team of principals, teachers, paraeducators, nurses, psychologists, bus drivers, and others we have who are preparing for the 25-26 school year. We will tackle tough challenges head on, something I believe we have since I started as superintendent. And under my leadership, you can continue to expect a relentless commitment to academic growth and improvement, safe and supportive environments, meeting the needs of the whole child, in schools where everyone feels a deep sense of belonging. And finally, back to our students, we are 13 days from go time for the 25-26 year. I cannot wait to greet you along with the nearly 500 amazing staff members that make up the Mercer Island School District.
We obviously didn't coordinate because I also have a numbered list of questions that are being asked and this the same responses. So, I wanted to give every board member a chance to make remarks about this very important topic and also to ask a question or two if they have questions for Dr. Rendell about his comments or about the situation. So let's just start with Deborah and then everybody go in turn and I'll finish up.
Thank you. You answered all the questions I had, so I don't have any more. First and foremost, to the former student at the center of this discussion, I recognize the courage it takes to share your experience and speak your truth. Addressing trauma is never easy, and your willingness to come forward is a powerful step towards healing, not only for yourself, but also for protecting others from harm. By sharing what happened, you have helped shine a light on injustice and made it possible for change to happen. Your bravery matters, and I'm deeply grateful for your strength and the positive impact your voice will have on others. I heard you when you asked for the district to protect other students while keeping this matter private. I'm a proud graduate of Mercer Island High School, that pride, and made Mercer Island my home in 2011 so my daughter could attend these schools. It was one of the best decisions I've ever made, and I believe it helped shape the amazing person she is today. When this incident became known during her senior year at high school, my first concern as a parent was her safety, and by extension, the safety of all students. I'm an attorney whose career has been devoted to advocating for children. I have represented thousands of children and youth in the areas of criminal justice, child welfare, mental health, and school law. Currently, I work as an ombuds with the Washington State Office of Family and Children's Ombuds. In this role, I'm responsible for investigating complaints about a Washington State agency's actions or conduct that involve any child at risk of abuse, neglect, or other harm. When a complaint issue is substantiated, we intervene to correct a violation of law or policy, or to prevent harm to a child or family. I'm a mandatory reporter. I'm required by law to report allegations of abuse or neglect to the appropriate authorities, regardless of whether it is brought to my attention professionally or personally. I share this background because it informs the lens for which I serve as a school board director. The safety of students and compliance with the law are the guiding principles in every decision I make. I learned of this incident in December 2023 when the superintendent informed the board in executive session that Mr. Twombly had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The immediate priority was ensuring no contact with students or staff. Under Washington State law, this was the correct procedural step to both protect students and uphold due process. Throughout the investigation, the board met regularly with the superintendent and outside legal counsel to receive updates, ask questions, and provide input. While operational and personnel matters are managed by the superintendent, we exercised our oversight role within the limits of the law. Our board follows the policy governance model. The board is responsible for policy and high-level priorities as we empower and monitor the superintendent to manage the operations. When all board directors respect and abide by the policy governance model, it is effective and efficient, all with the goal of maximizing student achievement. My primary concerns were the safety of our former students and the safety and well-being of current and future students. The former student made it clear that she wished to remain anonymous. This was her story to tell, no one else's. Some decisions have prompted questions. Why administrative leave instead of immediate termination? Employment law requires due process. Administrative leave immediately removed the teacher from student contact while the investigation proceeded, ensuring safety without violating legal obligations that could undermine the case. Why wasn't the matter made public immediately? The former student wished to remain anonymous. Public disclosure risked revealing her identity without increasing student safety, since the teacher was already removed from contact. Personnel matters are confidential by law, and public records were provided upon request. Wouldn't making it public have encouraged others to come forward if they had been harmed? It's impossible to know. There are valid arguments on both sides. Public disclosure might encourage some to speak up, but it could also discourage others who fear their identities might be revealed. Our responsibility is to ensure systems are in place to protect students in every possible way. Every option carries both intended and unintended consequences. The district made the decision it believed would best protect the safety and well-being of the reporting former student based on the information available at the time. I respect that reasonable people may reach a different conclusion. Why a contract settlement? Staff have the right to contest employment decisions. The settlement ensured the teacher's permanent removal while avoiding prolonged legal proceedings that could re-traumatize the student or delay resolution, all while following the law. The alternative would expose the student's identity, not be able to ensure that the teacher was permanently removed from the classroom, and cost the district hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. In every instance, decisions were made on the best information available, guided by legal counsel, and with student safety as the top priority. The investigation confirmed that these actions were appropriate. This was a painful and deeply troubling situation. While there are rarely perfect outcomes in such cases, the question is whether leadership acted with sound judgment, adherence to the law, and unwavering commitment to student safety. My answer is yes. I trust our superintendent's approach, seeking input, often more than others would, weighing differing views, consulting law enforcement and counsel, and making decisions that put students first. Following laws and policies is not a formality. It is what protects rights, ensures fairness, and holds people accountable. It builds trust in our institutions, safeguards the vulnerable, and creates the conditions for a safe learning environment. We are fortunate to have dedicated educators in our district who show up for our students every day. One individual's actions should not overshadow the commitment and integrity of those who remain steadfast in their service to our children. Thank you.
Kristen.
First of all, I would say that our duty as board and district leaders here is to face hard truths and advocate in the law and review the policies. I do think that everybody has something to say about this case, and it is because it's painful. This should have not happened to anybody, period. And I'm going to be emotional because this is an emotional situation. This is where it's so gray that's why there are laws in place and policies, because everybody will see it with their own point of view. So there's no I am right, you're wrong. The morality is so gray, and legislators do not have it right yet, and that's a problem, and that's why 1 in 3 girls are abused in their lifetime and 1 in 7 boys. So this is something that needs to be addressed and by every single adult in this room and whoever is in this time period. This is not. So most of the questions that I had to be answered. Some of them I maybe you do not have the answer. I think I will have a few that will be. So my understanding is that the license was removed in Washington, but there's no protocol or anything that we could do to make this to the national level, correct?
Not within our jurisdiction.
In the district.
My own experience applying for credentials across state lines from California to Colorado, Colorado to Washington, is you have to disclose, have you had any licenses in another state, or do you currently have a license? That's a general question asked in different ways. It would be up to the individual reporting that when they put that down as to whether or not they have that. But at least within our role and responsibility at a state level, that's state to state, not district to state.
Okay. And the other is like, as a district, do we have some jurisdiction also to go to the Department of Children and Youth so he doesn't have contact with minors anymore? And so have done, and if not, can we move forward on that end? So.
Yes, we filed ours in December, right after it happened. We filed our CPS report. And so they would have put that into their database. Then the police has their report that they would have submitted in King County. King County obviously has their report as well. How all of those talk to one another and at a systems level within the state, DCYF might have a better answer for that. I can't speak for them. I do want to reiterate that as part of the agreement with Mr. Twombly, we did not commit to holding back any information. We would not have ever agreed to something like that. And so any employer who would call us would be subject to the full truth of what happened. So we did not limit ourselves in any way.
Can I just, the only way to do a no contact with children is through a criminal conviction?
A follow-up question on that. My understanding is the RCWs prevents us from entering into any settlement agreement that would prevent disclosure. So that wasn't a choice. That was what the law required.
Well,
Correct, right? We didn't go above and beyond what the law required.
those are questions that the community have asked. So I'm just reiterating that as those are things the community have asked.
And Christina, did you have another question?
I think not at this moment. I think that I might jump in depending on what the others have. Maybe they have some questions related to that. I do have something to say. And I will say that as I said, this is why this job is so lonely, because we cannot discuss this in public. This is less. It is a lonely job because this is. So like the first time that I was able to ever mention this in my house was after the report that it was public. So not even in my house, it was discussed with my husband. Like it is that confidential, and I think that's the way that it should be done. So, my first comment is just as yours to the survivor in this case. And from the bottom of my heart, I am so sorry this is out there, because this was your story. It's in your terms, and please know that you have a community behind you, and we are supporting you, not him. That this should have not happened. So this is not your fault, and we are behind you. So you are okay. It has passed, and it's okay. So and to anybody else, like when children or any adult or anybody goes through this trauma, you have to respect certain boundaries. There's the stories and there's law, and we follow the law. And I think that was respected in a way that protected this person, and that matters a lot. And it also tells who we are in terms of our morals, in terms of what do we think values as a group. We always a community too. We do not want to report harm, and we are, and I'm saying that the district is here to support it, but also I understand that you might feel that the trust has been broken, and I'm saying I'm sorry about that, and I'm sorry for anybody that has been affected, and for anybody that's going through this, regardless if I'm not talking that it's the school is perpetrator. I'm saying this happens in every house. Like the majority of the cases is from somebody you know, and it's a family member. So if you're going through this, like get resources, you don't have to go through this alone. So this matters to our community. I think that I am also heartbroken that you feel that you cannot trust on the leaders here. I think that you feel that we own some transparency and some things. There's so many things that we don't know, and right now that they're posting, everybody knew. Like, well, if everybody knew, somebody had to tell it to the authorities that did not know and pursue it. So all these claims that I've been hearing that former students that they knew the case, those are without the district knowing. How can they investigate? So people have to come forward, and this promise of the Sandy Hook app that we have that says, see something, say something. That is true. But I also want to, and that is probably one of the questions, is how do we know when somebody sees something? It's an anonymous claim. How can we follow through in a way that is also, we are really looking for that student, that might be ability. So it is important that this is, and this is to our community and to the district, we see this disgrace as an opportunity. I think that this opportunity has to see, for example, if we cannot report to other states, to work with OSBI and our legislator to see how can we change this, because it doesn't matter. We can hire somebody from another state and we will not know that. So how can we change this? And this is where we have to come together and advocate for a change on the law in that sense. So this doesn't happen to any kid around the country. Others, like for example, if there's an anonymous tip, how can there be transparency in a real investigation when there was a previous tip, but then it fell there? So how can we do it? And this is a way that we have to strengthen this. So maybe I think that is the opportunity to examine our system and our policy, what is in place. And I'm curious because I think that also the community feels kind of betrayed or the mistrust. And I think that this mistrust is misleading because it's this gray area that people have come with their own story. And it's gray area because everybody has their own story. And this is the way it is. So having a committee that will look into all the procedures, seeing if with the appropriate people in place, see what do we need to make it stronger to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And if it happens, because we are like the able district, like that happens around the world, so we can act really fast to protect these children. But of course, the first is prevention, and it is examine everything that is related to child protection services. It is sexual abuse in the school district, harassment, and also those when a teacher also suspects of domestic abuse. So all that system, see what do we have, what do we have, and if we cannot change anything because the law forbids, then this is where we have to the ledge reps to go and advocate with the representatives and say this is not working. This is where it fails. And another example is the law that we have limitation of sexual limitation. So the statute of limitation, if anybody had an abuse before 2024, it has 3 years. And after that, it's unlimited. So this is totally unfair. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry, but it is, so those things can be changed if we talk, and I think my point here is this is an opportunity, and we have to take this as an opportunity. So we know that this is this. Moment. Sorry.
So I don't have any prepared remarks, but I do have some notes, and I'll try to keep it brief. At the last board meeting, I talked about principles. Some of those principles are governance principles, legal principles, ethical principles, and moral principles. I was then interrupted for 10 minutes when I was about to mention Mr. Twombly's name, because I guess there was fear that that secret would be disclosed to the community. You, Superintendent Rundle, then decided to front run the news and share that information yourself. So apparently that wasn't considered confidential. But tonight, let me speak for a moment about how experience informs those principles. I was a senior in a Mercer Island honors English block. The teacher at that time, Chip Wall, was well known among students who engage in grooming behavior with male students, myself included. I remember being invited to work out at the JCC, and then afterwards be invited with a classmate to the sauna, wrapped in towels, where he then proceeded to talk about Aristotle and homosexual love and man-child relationships in the Acropolis. Without question, that was sexual harassment and inappropriate. So a few things. One, all this talk about a victim. I think common sense in my experience and the experience of many others suggests that people in position of power, particularly those who have been in a position of power for a quarter century in a school district, has probably engaged in numerous inappropriate interactions that constituted sexual harassment. Whether that was just an interaction like myself, whether it led to sexual intercourse, whether a grade was held hostage, all on the spectrum of potential harms that were caused. The other thing that I take issue with is this idea that the only way to protect the identity of the victim is to protect the identity of the perpetrator. That is not true. You can look into any news story about investigations in the workplace, whether that's an athletic organization, whether it's a police force, whether it's a fire department, whether it's the Coast Guard, and you can name names of people who have been alleged and known to get engaged in inappropriate behavior, notify the community, and protect the confidentiality of the victim. Again, on experience. So one of my personal experiences that informs that decision is the pediatrician my son had, the best doctor relationship that I'd had in a very important moment in our life. We were subsequently notified that this doctor, Dr. Weinblatt, had been found to have sexually explicit material on his computer. Who did the notification? The physicians group. Because you know who usually does the notification on employment matters? The employer. Because that's where the behavior takes place. That's where the opportunity for victimhood took place. So this idea that we have no responsibility besides criminal, that's BS. And this idea that we couldn't do anything because of the law.
Can I remind you to keep your language?
Okay, I used an abbreviation, but it's another term. It's crap. Like, it defies common sense. It defies logic. And the other thing, Fred, is integrity. You just said that the board was fully informed. You know full well that when the severance agreement was entered into, I was in the middle of the mountains on the John Muir Trail, which I had scheduled months in advance, and notified you and Deborah that would be both out of network and wouldn't be attending that meeting. The only reason that I discovered it was because of an anonymous request that was made under the Washington State Public Records Act. This administration and this school district has a problem with transparency, a problem with cover-ups, and that's the reason we've become complicit in allowing victims to occur and for predators to continue preying. And I don't understand the morality at all of paying a pension to someone that we know who abused trust in the most profound way. And I think like he surrendered his license that I understand and now collects $4,000 or $5,000 a month in pension after being paid for 14 months. Like, I don't agree with that.
Do you have any questions?
I think there'll be a lot of questions from the community in the coming days and weeks, and I think there will be a call for action and accountability.
Thank you. Okay. All along, the student at the heart of this issue has asked for two things: that she not be identified and details of her circumstances be kept confidential, and that Mr. Twombly not be able to teach again, and that he would not be in a position to behave this way ever with other students. It is frightening and enraging to think that a person in a position of authority abused his trust over students. Criminal and legal investigations take time. The statute of limitations on sexual abuse and misconduct cases, particularly against those against children, is maddening. There is no law enforcement charges on the table. The district did what it could to respect the victims' main goals. This might not be the resolution any of us would have chosen, and not feel punitive enough. It's definitely frustrating. It was frustrating to us when we learned about it originally, and it's frustrating now. It's frustrating to feel like someone is evading the full consequences of his actions. But this is what the victim in this case wanted. Mr. Twombly surrendered his Washington State teaching license, a red flag for any other state or institution, and she didn't have to participate in administrative or legal action to separate him or force that surrender. It is beyond the pale for someone to take information they learned in a confidential setting and present selective details for political purposes or to settle scores. The victim in this case asked for confidentiality. The district worked to assure that the settlement in this case included it. One of the many ways the district protects children is to make sure they feel safe coming forward with their stories. Some things should be out of bounds when playing politics.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I do not think they were answered previously.
I do have a question. I'm going to ask my question first, which is just kind of on behalf of the community, because of what I've been hearing in emails and phone calls and so forth. I think that parents will find it really reassuring to know what the district does right now in terms of teacher training, admin training, student training, kind of like what is this covered in health classes, is this covered in assemblies? Like, we would kind of like to hear about that. I'm not saying right now, I don't want to put that on the spot, like if you want to address it when we kind of get back around to you, that's great. But if not, I do think that a lot of the parents are feeling, uneasy right now, and that would be helpful for them to know that the district is on. So I'm going to read my very short prepared remarks now, because I'm taking all the stuff everyone has already said. Just to clarify that I'm speaking on my own behalf rather than in my role as board president here. When I joined the school board in 2019, I was very surprised that one of the first parts of my orientation was a briefing on a couple of legal situations that the district was handling. It turns out that this is a not insignificant part of this job, being updated regularly on lawsuits, personnel investigations, and other legal situations. The rules are very strict regarding these updates. They are only given in executive session as outlined in state law. We are not allowed to keep any materials shown to us in those sessions. Even our own notes have to be shredded before we leave the room. We're absolutely not allowed to discuss what we've learned outside of people, other than with people who have official reason to know about the situation. That's something that the board has traditionally adhered to scrupulously. This was an unusual case for several reasons. One is the way that it came to the district's attention. This former student did not initially choose to disclose this experience to the authorities. She disclosed it to a work friend, which set off a domino effect that resulted in the authorities being informed. Reason number two is the length of the investigation, which you've already heard about, and the number of different offices involved: MIPD and the King County Prosecutor's Office, as well as the current MISD leadership. I'm just contrasting that to other personnel investigations that we've followed as board. And number three is the decision that was made to honor the preferences of the former student. As you've no doubt already heard this evening, the former student asked for only two things: that Mr. Twombly not be allowed to teach again, and that her name and identity kept out of the public eye. We have come a long way in the US in the last quarter century in how our legal system handles cases of sexual misconduct. One of the biggest changes is that we have learned to listen to victims rather than steamrolling over them with our own stereotypes and agendas. There was a lot of subtle and not so subtle misinformation in the story that the Mercer Island Reporter ran on Monday when they broke this story. A major focus of the article was a supposed cover-up in which the district and the board were trying to protect the perpetrator in this case. Nothing could be further than the truth. My entire working life has been about advocating for children, both as an occupational therapist and now as a social worker. I have absolutely zero interest in enabling or protecting those who violate children, and I can say the same is certainly true for absolutely everyone else on the board. The term cover-up implies that data was hidden from the public and that lies were told in the service of some ulterior end. However, the district kept all records of their investigation, as did, I assume, the police and the prosecutor's office. When a public records request was made, the district released the records. That is pretty much the exact opposite of a cover-up. My concern throughout the situation has been to do my best to respect the privacy and honor the request of the victim. The reporter article mentions a meeting in which 4 members of the board erupted when Director Glowitz began talking about this case. That's a fair characterization that the board erupted. The concern of the rest of the board at that moment was that Director Glowitz was about to discuss the case in enough detail that the student's identity would be given away. If you watch the video again with that knowledge, it should be obvious that that is what's going on. This was a difficult situation handled well, in my opinion, by our superintendent. I have a daughter in our schools, and I feel confident that the current administration takes the prevention and investigation of sexual misconduct seriously. In closing, I hope that people can agree to respect the young woman's privacy to whatever extent that is still possible. For those concerned about potential future victims of any types of crimes in our district, let's please try not to create an environment in which victims do not feel safe asking for help or making their voices heard.
Happy to come back with more information about how we train teachers and support students. On the teacher training side, there's mandatory training that we go through, what every employee needs to know. We have both online trainings with that as well as in person. Just this week, as a matter of fact, during our leadership trainings, we go over what that looks like, which we did this week. And so, that's all part of the standard training at the beginning of each year. A couple things we've changed that I think are important for you to know as a board. Up until 2 years ago, there wasn't any real way for staff members who were going to be chaperoning overnight trips to be vetted in the same way that we would our volunteers. And so starting 2 years ago, we started using the Washington State Patrol background check that we do with our volunteers. In fact, before I went on the Macy's Day Parade, I participated in that as well. And so that is something we added. We also added, starting this year and partially in thinking about this, in the state of Washington, once you get your teaching credential, which in order to do that, as well as work in any of the schools, you have to go through a FBI background check with fingerprinting. Once you've cleared that and you are given your certification or approved to teach in a school, there isn't a requirement that you have to, on a regular basis, continue to go through new checks. We added, starting this year, partly as we reflect on this, that every 5 years, that's when we all have to up our licensure, that we'll be conducting those with our staff on a rotating basis to be sure that we're continuing to check on our current staff. As far as the student side goes, again, we can bring much more back, but one of the reflections we had, this was pre-COVID, I think. I'm looking over to Assistant Superintendent Williams, but we had adopted the second step curriculum, but a lot of the information that was about safe touching and inappropriate conduct by adults didn't happen until 5th and 6th grade in the curriculum. They have a safe touching or appropriate touching unit. And so we added that in 1st and 3rd grade to go along. And so that was several years ago, pre-COVID, I believe, with that. Our IMS and high school health classes have continued to make this part of the curriculum. And one of the areas that we had a concern was we had a number of students who would take health during summer school. And in a review of our health curriculum a few years ago, we identified that the experience that students were getting in that summer school, which was more of an independent study, did not reflect what we wanted to make sure was seen. And I know it hasn't been met with great appreciation from students who used to take that health class, and it was rather simple, that they now have to attend in class 3 days a week during summer school to earn that health credential. And that's because we cover important things such as this in that curriculum. So those are just a couple of things that we've done that come to the top of my mind. Again, as a board, if you would like to have health teachers and others come back, we would be happy to do that.
Can I just get a little like thumbs up, thumbs down, whether people are interested in that? Like, I'm interested. But I don't like,
I think we have bigger questions to answer.
okay, but do people want, like, this specific questions, do people want to hear more about what our kids are taught on this topic? I don't see.
Not really. I think we have more
You're
important
no,
things to discuss.
yes. Anybody else?
I defer if there's people who want to, I'm happy to. I'm confident with the curriculum we have.
Same.
And I would say that I know what my kids are taught because it is part of what happens is that it's also shared with the parents, so parents can opt out or not. So I have seen what my kids have been taught in school, but I also think that if that's beneficial for those who have not gone through the process,
Right.
I'm all to.
Yeah.
Why don't I recommend this as part of Fundamental 2? High standards, health is one of those. We can make that a part of the Fundamental 2 report and kind of add that as an addendum.
That would be great.
That
Yeah.
would fit into your schedule.
That would be great. Yeah. But I didn't know, I don't know if you want to address any of the other concerns that were raised. You don't need to. I'm just giving you the opportunity before we go.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like some of the questions that I have, I mean, again, about the extent, with a big difference you have.
So,
So when-
first of all, wait, I didn't recognize you.
Okay.
I asked Fred if he wanted to address one. Can we like let him answer this question first? Did you in fact one?
No,
Okay, so the goal here was to give everyone a chance to say their piece and ask a question or two, and we have accomplished that, and it is almost 6 p.m. So I would love to move forward to public input. We have all these great public input.
I would like to know if, if he had a Snapchat account, and if so, how recent?
Thanks, Dan.
Okay.
Moving on to public input. Thank you. Anyone have something?
I think that's in the part that you didn't provide to me, but a member of the community did.
Okay, we are moving on to public input. We have a lovely list of public inputers here. Give me a second to pull it up. Or Michelle, who's the first one?
The first is Margaret Redmond. She'll be online.
Great. You're sideways, Mark. I don't know if you can. Yes, thank you.
Okay, can you see me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I need sorry, I just need to read the spiel. Hang on. School board meetings are business meetings of the Mercer Island School District Board of Directors held in public. The board recognizes the value of the public being able to observe these meetings and to provide comment with the following guidelines. Public comment is an opportunity for community members to provide input to and feedback on the work of the board and the district. It is not a time for dialogue between the board and the public. Board directors do not respond directly to questions or comments posed during public comment. However, the board's silence should not be taken as agreement or disagreement with the speaker's remarks. The board may later direct the superintendent to respond to issues raised during public comment. Members of the public offering comment must adhere to the same level of civility that the board expects of itself as specified in board policies. This includes not using threatening or profane language in comments and not directing individual attacks against staff, students, administrators, or board members. Please note that comments have the potential to violate the rights of others under various laws, including laws protecting privacy and laws prohibiting defamation. Comments that name or identify a district student are not permitted without permission of that student's parent or guardian. Speakers who violate any of these rules will be cut off and their speaking time ended. Speakers should state their full name for the record at the start of their comment and are encouraged to indicate their relationship to the district. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to comment, additional time including an interpreter. If you're present in person at tonight's meeting, wishing to make a comment and have not yet completed a public input form, please complete the form and give it to Michelle Mueller. Blank forms are available at the entrance. The cutoff to register for online comment was 1 hour before the start of the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Go ahead, Mar.
Thank you. My name is Mar Bretman, and I am a parent with students in the district. And I support the Mercer Island School District's choice to protect the story of a former student impacted by sexual misconduct who requested confidentiality. I'm deeply troubled that against the wishes of this brave alum, someone shared their story with media outlets. This summer, my friend's daughter was raped. When she reported the assault to police, officers told my friend that the most important thing for her daughter's healing was empowerment, allowing her daughter to tell her story on her own terms. They warned that telling or taking her story without consent could be as traumatizing as the assault itself. I learned this principle during more than a decade of working with survivors of child sexual abuse and human trafficking as CEO of a local nonprofit. I grieved with survivors who told me that they had been re-traumatized and re-exploited by people who took their stories for personal or monetary gain. I'm grateful that my children attend a district that honored the alum's request for confidentiality and immediately placed the perpetrator on leave to protect other students. Would you want the worst moments of your child's life published as news or debated as social media? Confidentiality is not only respectful, it is essential for safety. Confidentiality helps students and their families feel safer coming forward to report potential predators in our midst, which keeps all of our children safer. Will young people or their families speak up if they fear being outed or having their trauma used for political purposes? By refusing to honor confidentiality, we silence voices, make our children less safe, and empower predators. And I just wanted to comment that if anyone watching this has experienced violence and wants to speak confidentially with a sexual assault advocate, I've worked with and can highly recommend the King County Sexual Assault Resource Center at 888-998-6423. And so would encourage you to reach out to an advocate who will have your best interests in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mar. The next speaker is Robert O'Callahan.
Oh my God.
Sorry. We can still hear you. Okay, she's muted. Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Robert O'Callahan, parent of the district. The district's failure to protect our students from a teacher's alleged abuse, ignoring a 2016 tip, delaying action until 2023, and hiding the truth until an August 8th email is a betrayal of trust. Worse, in the public meeting, June 26th this year, when one director questioned the 14th month severance paid to an alleged predator, other board members silenced him, falsely claiming it was illegal to mention this. The district's legal counsel misinterpreted the Open Public Meetings Act to support them. The silence director called it a culture of cover-up, and they're correct. Our community demands justice through accountability. I call for the resignations of the superintendent, district legal counsel, and board members who enabled this cover-up. We need mandatory reporting, independent investigations, and public disclosure of systemic failures while respecting victim privacy. Our children's safety demands accountability, not excuses. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Next, we have Liz Buckley. Is Elizabeth Buckley here? Oh, yeah.
I have prepared some things on transparency, but I don't think you'll listen. So I'll talk from my heart and not read from a paper. I'm a CASA. I'm a trained court-appointed special advocate. I've sat in family court in Champaign County in Illinois and was the professional fundraiser. I do not agree with how this is handled, and I think many community members agree with me. I think you should get on Reddit and read what some of our students are saying anonymously. I've heard stories for many years about some things that just don't seem right. Unchaperoned events, trips to Vietnam, pictures, things put on Instagram, and teachers that I don't think are behaving correctly. This is not good for the teachers in our district who are amazing. It's not fair. Because I'm sure some of the teachers know this stuff is going on. Meetings in offices by themselves, meetings outside of school, unchaperoned events. And when I read, which you say we shouldn't have been able to read, that this one student had to recite something for this teacher in connection with possibly a grade, I thought of growing up as a singer, professional singer who was alone a lot of times with voice teachers. They would use that power construct to give singers leads. If you didn't agree with their advances, you didn't get a lead in the opera. That's how this power gradient works. It's very dangerous. So I invite you to not just dismiss all of this and say it's something political or that X post is not true. I don't know what all is true in it, but it does not look good for our district. And Senator Wellman is not helping either. We are getting compared to another island, another infamous island. It looks like we're protecting people that are child predators. We have a culture. You should look into it on Reddit. You should believe what students are saying. I've had 2 high schoolers, but I've heard the stories. This isn't a joke. This isn't for you guys to obfuscate and say you're protecting the victim. It's for you guys to be honest, clean house, do well by your great teachers, which you have so many, and get real about what's going on here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our next speaker is Leslie Malakati.
Thank you. My name is Leslie Malakati, and I am a parent of 2 daughters in the district. I moved here 8 years ago and have fallen in love with this place, mostly because of the wonderful community that comes with being a home here. Because this is a small and generally tight-knit community, I believe that many of us have felt shock, disgust, sadness, worry, and anger over the past week upon learning of the inappropriate conduct by a former high school teacher and the decisions made by various former and current school administrators and local police. But the most disheartening part of the past week has been watching how we as a community have behaved when facing a tragic situation. Good neighbors should invite conversation and collaboration with each other. Good neighbors should assume good intentions from the other parties. We should be gathering to help each other process all these emotions and to talk about ways to improve the systems for the future. These are incredibly emotional and nuanced conversations about balancing the public right to know with the victim's right to privacy, balancing not rewarding bad behavior with legal due process and employment contract law, showing that our community will shelter and support those who come forward without making them feel like we're trying to downplay or hide abuse. These are not conversations that can take place on social media, which is inherently opposed to tone and nuance. We are setting a terrible example for our children by yelling at each other over our screens and doing nothing productive. I'm here tonight asking everyone in the community to step back from their keyboards and think about how we can create spaces where we can have these honest, tough, and necessary conversations about how we collectively create a safer and stronger school and city environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Our next speaker is Kim Florence.
Good evening. My name is Kim Florence, and I am a parent in the district with 3 children. And I am actually raising some comments today on behalf of a group of parents that would like to address the student affected by this terrible situation. We have never met you, and we have no idea who you are, but we wanted to tell you that we are sorry. We are sorry that you were ever put in this situation. We are sorry that a middle-aged man who knew better harmed you. We are sorry if you ever felt alone in this. We are proud of you for having the courage to come forward when you did, to share your story, and in this man's teaching career on Mercer Island and Washington State. We are sorry that Washington State law did not allow for his arrest and conviction. We are sorry that your request for privacy was not honored. We are sorry that others felt the need to exploit you again when we are guessing all you really wanted was to put this behind you and move on with your life. We're sorry that another middle-aged man who you have never met is being lauded as a hero for co-opting your story against your expressed wishes and making it about him. This is not okay. He's taking credit for your bravery. You are the one that exposed this child predator. You are the one that put it into this teacher's career, and you are the brave whistleblower. We want you to know that there are many on this island that stand in solidarity with you. We know who the real hero is. We know the kind of courage it must have taken for you to come forward. We applaud you and also desire to honor your request to keep this matter private. You own your story, not the Mercer Island reporter, not any candidate for office, not even MISD. You should have been given the privacy you requested. We are truly sorry that you've been let down again by the adults in the room.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Tom Acker.
Not really sure what I'm going to say other than I'm extremely disappointed in this board and school administration. There's a pattern of neglect that has gone on for years here. I remember when a former school board member, it was brought to the board's attention that he didn't even go through the background check and had been convicted of assault and battery to the point he put his girlfriend in the hospital. So, and then I feel for the victim. I want to acknowledge that first. This is a horrible atrocity that's being committed. And I don't believe that her identity has been compromised, but I can't help ask the question, if this had been handled appropriately in 2015, then maybe future other victims that we don't know about yet might have been protected. So there are ways to let the community know there's a risk, and I don't believe those have fallen. And I kind of feel like everybody is circling wagons now and protecting each other on the board and in the administration, rather than following the core value of looking out for the safety of our students. And there's a gentleman that spoke earlier about asking for the resignations. I mean, I never want to see that, but I think that you guys have become the story now, and I do think you've covered it up. I also have done public disclosure requests, and the way that they come back are so hard. They're redacted to the point that the stuff that hasn't been redacted shouldn't have been redacted, and I haven't followed up on that stuff, but I wonder how many other lawsuits and settlements there have been for other teachers. Apparently there are teachers or wingmen for some of these individuals that have gone out and participated in the grooming or recruiting of minors. I believe there was a termination 5-6 years ago. I'm not going to say the teacher's name, EA or the initials, that was terminated, and he'd been known to have inappropriate conduct for several decades. You go through the Reddit comments, it is atrocious. These kids all knew. And there's an email that went out that encouraged you to report the incident to the schools, but the schools did nothing in this case from 2015 on. In that email, you should have encouraged people, Fred, to talk to their parents first. Parents are the first line of defense, apparently, against the schools, because these issues haven't been addressed. And there have been background checks, appropriate background checks, because even the board members didn't follow those, apparently. And that was covered up, too. And then you have board members who have inappropriate posts online about drugs, sex, all sorts of things. There's no accountability here at all. And you've let the community down, let the teachers down. And I know there's a big fan club that is going to support and say a lot of things, but think about the next steps carefully. Thank you.
Just as a matter of information, elected officials are not required to do background checks. If a person were to get elected and then fail a background check, you couldn't remove them from office.
Except he was volunteering in the school.
Okay, I'm just making that clear. It's not that the school district was failing to background check our board members. It's not a requirement. Okay, our next speaker is Josie Bessiker. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Josie Bessiker, and I'm a mom in the Mercer Island School District. I have a daughter in high school, I have a niece in middle school, and I have another niece in elementary school. I've spent more than 10 years volunteering in our school district, serving in our classrooms and on the PTA, which included 2 years as PTA president and several years on the PTA council. I know firsthand that serving this community is both an honor and a serious responsibility. I was appalled to learn of the serious sexual misconduct allegations against our high school teacher with the first report dating back to 2015. Knowing that our district leaders, some of still are serving today, had knowledge of these allegations and failed to act is deeply disturbing. Protecting our children is the highest trust anyone can be given, and you have broken that trust. In 2023, when additional allegations were made, you did not immediately terminate this teacher or inform our families. Instead, you placed him on paid administrative leave for 14 months before he resigned. While he's no longer in our district, as it's been shared tonight, I understand that the agreement you made still allows him to teach or work with youth outside of our state. Choosing to protect this predator over protecting our children is inexcusable. Our community only learned of this entire situation last Friday evening, August 8th, 2025. That is nearly a decade of missed opportunities to protect our students. This is not just a moral failure, it's a clear violation of your obligation to our community. You didn't warn parents, you didn't protect additional students, you gave a predator continued access to our kids. That is unacceptable and unforgivable. Our children deserve to feel safe at school. They deserve leaders who act immediately at the first red flag, not quietly managing things behind closed doors. As a mom and as an auntie with girls in this school district, I want to know how this is allowed to happen, why we were all kept in the dark about it, and exactly what will be done to ensure that this does not happen again. Our community deserves transparency, and our kids deserve safety. To follow up to a question that happened or that was taking place here, we were talking about the students training. I would like an in-depth, deep understanding of what teachers are trained. I would also like a full report on what information they have. I was a good parent and I completed my RSVP. Who has access to my daughter's cell phone number, private email address? Do teachers have Snapchat accounts? Do teachers have Instagram accounts? What are the rules and the gray area between how that's shared? So if you could follow up, I would appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Frank Scott.
Thanks for giving me this opportunity to speak. My wife and I graduated from Mercer Island High School in 1975, and to Dr. Rundles tonight, we spawned back to Mercer Island 5 years ago. I'm deeply troubled by the actions of a former teacher that took advantage of their position of power, and my heart aches for that student, now a young adult. With that context, let me make 2 points. Allegations of sexual assault of any kind should be referred to the local police, wherever they take place. In this case, it appears that something was wrong in 2016. I can't speak to what the administration did at that time and what the board at that time knew. When the names of those involved in the alleged incidents became known in December 23, reports are that the police were notified, and ultimately the King County Prosecutor's Office got involved. That's exactly the right place in my mind where these type of investigations should take place. Second, there's a question of the separation agreement with the district and what was negotiated with Dr. Twombly. In over 40 years of professional life, I've had to deal with 4, maybe 5 employees that did awful things. In every case, it was heart-wrenching. You ask yourself, can we just fire this person and be done with it? If there were victims, what can we do to support them? If there's a chance of litigation, what will that cost us? What will the public think if it becomes known? Can we do anything to make sure that even after this person separates from the organization, they don't do this again? In this case, it was probably not an option to fire the teacher outright. They have due process rights, they were put on leave, and they never returned to the classroom. The victim asked not to make this a public matter. That matters a lot to me. Terminations without settlement are incredibly hard to achieve in this day and age. A protracted legal dispute would be costly to the district and likely would require the victim to testify and relive their assault. To the question of what the public will think, I ask only 2 questions. What would you want if your child had something similar to happen to them, and ask for this whole problem to go away? Do you think allegations like these are best referred to the police or the Mercer Island reporter? And finally, it looks like the school district took every step to make sure that this person didn't teach again in public schools in Washington State. I doubt they could have prevented much more. So I'm saddened by this event, inspired by teachers, to much of the 20 or so teachers that I remember them 50 years ago. Thank you.
2 speakers left, Julian Bradley.
Good evening. My name is Julian Bradley. I'm a current parent in the district and a candidate for school board as well. Like most of us in this room, I read Dr. Rundle's email to the community and the Mercer Island Reporter and Investigate West article with horror. Chris Twombly's actions are unconscionable, and I was devastated to learn the details last week. Our most sacred responsibility as parents, educators, and leaders is to keep our children safe, and we failed them. Our community has now failed the affected student twice. First, by failing to protect them from gender-based abuse by a trusted educator. And again, by publicizing this story against their explicit wishes. In any event, we owe this student a debt of gratitude for their bravery in coming forward to protect others, and our deepest apologies for failing to respect their wishes for confidentiality. We also owe it to every student and former student to do everything in our power as a community to ensure they are protected from gender-based violence. I worry that outing this affected student against their wishes will dissuade others who were potentially impacted from coming forward. I sincerely hope that is not the case. Our incredible counselors at Mercer Island Youth and Family Services are standing by, ready to support those who have suffered from gender-based abuse and anyone else who needs support during this difficult time. Their confidential reporting line can be reached at 206-275-7657. If there are others who have experienced abuse in our schools, I stand here tonight to say that we see you, we hear you, we believe you, and we are so very sorry that we have failed you. I hoped that it would not come to this, but I understand that school board candidate Brian Gaspar has been urging others to report potential abuse to him. Given that, I feel duty bound to share with the community that Mr. Gaspar has also been charged with perpetrating gender-based abuse. I discovered to my dismay that at least 2 women have obtained domestic violence restraining orders against Mr. Gaspar. One of the women was sufficiently fearful that the court renewed the restraining order 3 years later. Criminal charges were brought in at least one of those cases. All of the record cases have been sealed by the state of California at Mr. Gaspar's request. But I do have copies of the court dockets for each of the matters I was able to locate for those who wish for more information.
Thank you, Jillian. Dave Larson.
Reporter indicated that the first incidents, or both incidents, occurred in the school year 2015-2016. That is the first point which intervention could have been made. I was a school board director at that time, and no other school board directors that are here now can say that. There are people in the room who were administrators who were there at that time. I can tell you that I didn't know anything about this case. I can only speak for myself. I don't know about any other people involved. But I can say I'm very disappointed that this occurred and nothing was done in 2015 or 2016 when this thing first came to light. It boggles the mind. It was essentially pushed under the rug, at least if you believe that's what the reporter said. And my first job is to apologize for all those involved, to the public, to the students, that no serious investigation was made at that time. Now, 8 years later, it's totally different. I'm not even going to talk about what happened then. The only question is, why didn't we seriously investigate the report, even though it was an anonymous report? It could have been investigated. We could have asked people if they had any interactions with Mr. Twombly, et cetera, in a confidential way. We didn't. We really failed the community. Now, the board is talking about, we can't do anything because this is policy governance. You can. The community, the board can set a policy and write the policy, and the superintendent can follow the policy. That is the board's job. You have to use policy governance to do it. I know there are rules, regulations, procedures, but it can be done if you have 4 members, 3 members or more of the board agreeing. So do it, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. We have one more sign up, Ashley Sternberg.
Hi, I don't have any comments prepared because I wasn't expecting to. I just wanted to share that I recognize that I have very conflicting feelings about this, as I'm sure many of us do, because I'm aware of how much I don't know. I'm aware of how much is behind the scenes that I really don't know, and I have a lot of respect for everybody here. So I just want to say that. When I was in high school, there was a friend of mine in my honors English class, the irony is lost on me, who was raped by our teacher. And subsequently, not then, but maybe 10 or 15 years later, he was removed and disgraced. And I just know that this is a lot more common than people would expect. And I went on Reddit and trying, like many people, to sort of figure out more facts because there's so much we don't know. And I was alarmed by how many students are sharing anonymously names of other teachers, suspicions, confirmations, situations. I have friends with daughters who are telling me stories that are ongoing with current teachers now. So I say this because I want to know why we have a culture where kids don't feel safe commenting publicly. This is all anonymous on Reddit. And I really, I do want to speak up because of the confidentiality of the victim. I have so much respect for that. What everybody has said before, I would echo those, and I can understand that. I just feel so morally uneasy about knowing that there is this grooming behavior and predatory behavior going on, almost certainly, even though we don't know, and it's not factual, and it's hard to investigate, and I appreciate that. But I do think that given this day and age where Reddit is possible, and we are knowing that there are likely more victims out there, and there are more behavior going on that's inappropriate, I would just ask that there would be some sort of mechanism or way that the school could not keep it so incident specific perhaps, but take this as an opportunity to examine what's going on in our culture. And one other quick thing is that I just have a hard time believing that this teacher could have been, there's a real risk of him coming back to the schools to teach after the King County prosecution statement. The thought that he got paid out makes me really sick to my stomach. And that's that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashley. But just for the sake of the public, if someone thinks there's something going on that is untoward and they are willing to step forward and share information, who should they go to? Should they go to a counselor? Should they go to their principal? Should they go to you? Like,
we always say they should go to a trusted adult, which is why the school's been working extremely hard to make sure that every single student has a trusted adult in the school. I don't disagree with one of the public commenters that they could go to a parent, they could go to an aunt, to an uncle, to a teacher, a custodian, a bus driver. We have youth and family services represented here. They're another excellent resource as well. They can go to the see something, say something app and report something about someone anonymously. And again, there is that resource. So the trusted adult is the key piece, and what they want to share and then what should be brought forward. I think sometimes people go forward and they want to say, but I don't want you to tell anyone or whatnot. I also want to be transparent that if they're a mandatory reporter, they don't have a choice. If someone comes and reports something to me, I don't have a choice but to report that because I'm a mandatory reporter. So I also have to be honest that it can't always be guaranteed confidentiality by all of those folks, but please find a trusted adult.
thank you.
I'd like to make one comment, and some might not be thrilled with me, but.
And then, sorry, just after your comment, we're going to take a 10-minute break. So,
Former Director Myerson, I appreciate your statement very much, and just to correct the Mercer reporter that had the copy of the investigation and they neglected to share it, the 2015-16 matter, and I'm not going to go into details, and it's public information for people who want to find it. The 2015-16 incident was investigated by law enforcement. They were unable to locate both the tipster who refused to provide the student's information, and the student. No student ever came forward. They were unable to proceed with any investigation. The Mercer has all of that information, which is where I didn't get it from the report, but they have the same information I looked at. So you have nothing to be ashamed of, that the personnel you were supervising at the time handled things appropriately.
thank you. We are going to take a 10-minute break. So we will reconvene at 6:40. We're going to reconvene at 6:45. We are back. Thank you, Nick. Next section here is partial governance process monitoring. Board policy 1800 OE9 communication support to the board, update on partnership with Strategies 360.
Great. When we adjourned in June, I let you know that I'd be working with Strategies 360 and that they would be ready to come in August with some updates. And so we did have a chance to meet with them. Director Kuhn, this is Superintendent Sullivan, myself, Communications Coordinator Ian Henry, Brandy Fox, and they really kind of outline that there's two parts to their process. Phase one is all of the demographic analysis. It's at the precinct level and really looking at voter trends on Mercer Island across precincts over the last several elections. And so they were providing kind of just a general overview of that. The larger component, which will be at your next board meeting 2 weeks from tonight, they'll return, but this time with you, and they'll talk to all of us. They'll provide overview of their findings, and then they'll start setting the stage for the phase two, which is when they start engaging community through their survey as they're moving forward. So this is really, as I told you, I wanted to keep you up to speed on kind of where we were. They're still on track to begin after Labor Day. Once families are back, that first week back to school, there's a lot going on. And so we'll wait till the Labor Day holiday is over, and then they'll begin their surveying. They will discuss at our board meeting the various themes around which they ask the questions and get some feedback from all of you as well as from myself. So those are some next steps from Strategies 360. I just wanted to provide that out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions about Strategies 360? No? Okay. Plan. The next item is board policy 1008 annual agenda planning. So this is looking at the calendar for 2025 to 2026. There have been a couple little changes. You probably all saw the linkage with legislators was moved from 5 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, January 8th. And there was a study session for board development added on Thursday, February 26th. And then finally, the linkage with the PTA council was moved to Thursday, February 26th, from 5:45 to 6:45. So it'll be back to back, MIA linkage and then PTA council. Does anyone have conflicts or questions or problems they see on there?
Can you say what you just said about the linkages moving?
So the linkages got moved around a little bit. If you want to check your calendar, I can just say it really slowly. The legislative linkage is now Thursday, January 8th from 5 to 6. Okay. I guess it was different before. The study session for board development is now Thursday, February 26th from 1 to 4.
What was the other date?
I don't know what the old date was. You know, Michelle?
There was no.
Oh, we just added it. Okay.
So I'm sorry, please say.
Thursday, February 26th from 1 to 4.
Okay.
And
when does the session start? The new session for the legislature.
Legislature.
That's the
It's
first.
right after the 8th.
Oh, it's after
On the
the
11th, but I've been in contact with all of the legislators.
Perfect. Sorry,
So this
it's usually the first week, so great.
Perfect. They should still have time for us. And then, the linkage with the PTA council is now Thursday, February 26th from 5:45 to 6:45. And right before that is the MIEA linkage session. Usually there's a 15-minute break in between.
So if you made additions to your calendar based on the June meeting, those are the updates. Tonight is further discussion so that in 2 weeks, you can take formal action setting your planning calendar for the year.
So it won't just be on the consent agenda. We'll actually look at it one more time, correct?
Generally you have, just to make sure and people have a chance to check their schedules.
Yeah. Okay. No questions or errors or anything. Okay. Item C, board policy 1800 OE9, communication support to the board, proposed revisions to board policy 1430, public participation at board meetings, first reading. So just for a little context for people who've been asking about this, this is something that is, you know, so we look at all of our policies routinely, but the impetus to tweak our policy a little bit came about after a meeting in the spring where we had so many people signed up because of one particular issue that they were trying to spread awareness of, that the public comment was nearly 2 hours long. It was like an hour, 40 minutes long, something like that. And it actually pushed us past the latest that we're allowed to run these meetings until, and so we actually had to schedule a whole nother board meeting a few days later so that we could actually finish our board business. And so the question was raised of, could we, in a situation like that, limit comment time, say to 2 minutes instead of 3 minutes, or to just cut off after a certain point and say, okay, after an hour and a half, we're going to cut off a comment, you know, we're just going to go in the order that people signed up, obviously content neutral. So that was the where that came from. Do people, this is a first reading of the proposed policy revisions, so people can take a look at it.
I mean, I feel like that has like literally come up once. Right. And so I think it'll be something that we'll have to call on frequently or at all probably, but I do feel like that it's good to have a tool like that in their toolbox because it's not good management for anyone, not for the people who came to present, not for the board members who are here. It's just too much public comment. I mean, it's like an hour and a half of the same subject was simply too much.
To be fair, it wasn't an hour and a half on the same subject. Well, no. There was a lot of teachers who wanted to speak that evening, and we wanted to make sure they got through too. But yeah, I agree, because if you don't, like, we tried to do something on the fly that evening and nobody was happy with that idea on the fly. So I think the idea is that we do have this policy in place, so people will know, if we bring in 30 people to speak about, you know, snickerdoodle cookies, like maybe they won't all get to speak, and maybe we'll crowd out someone else. Tony. Maybe we'll crowd out other people that also have important issues to talk about.
Yes. I mean, I think it's just important for the public to recognize when we have this on our agenda that it's not something we're anticipating using with any frequency or unless this sort of unusual circumstance comes up again. But like here, for instance, tonight we were able to accommodate many speakers, and it's not something that we would, you know.
I think several people have pointed out that this policy has not been updated for something like 42 years. I think that's like from the 80s. Yeah, 83. So 42 years. And it's like, well, you know, why now? And the answer is that we are living in a different world now, where first of all, it's possible to speak by Zoom. So people who can't make it in person are able to comment, but also it's very possible to use social media to rally people and say, hey, everybody show up there tonight and make public comment, you know, to say XYZ, you know. So it is like a different time than 1983 was. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Deborah. And then Dan.
I think it's really important to look at the purpose and function of board meetings, that they are meetings of the board in public and that there's board business that has to be done, both monitoring requirements as well as other business types of duties. So that has to be balanced with the hugely important aspect of public input and for the community being able to provide feedback. I recognize the need for people to want to make their comments public, but there are so many ways to make sure that the board is hearing voices that I think that having, I was actually, when I first got this, was expecting there to be kind of more, not more restrictive, but more prescribed alternatives. And I appreciate that there aren't, that's left open. I think that, you know, in my experience, you know, it's been literally in 8 years, a handful of meetings where there's been a significant amount of public input. Frankly, honestly, I wish there was more most of the time. And so it's just the fact that we have a policy where we don't exceed 4 hours because board directors are volunteers and our staff has been working long days and will return to work the next day to meet the needs of our students. So it's just, excuse me, it's just balancing that. And And I think that there needs to be, there's, in no way is it an effort to cut out public input and community voice, that it's just a matter of balancing and making sure that we can also accomplish the business that the board has. And also, while I appreciate it, and I would do the same, we have many people here for public input and then they leave for the business of the board, which totally respect. I have no issue with that, but there are people here continuing to work.
Thank you. Yeah.
One comment I have is if it would be possible to not read it before each meeting, like when I've testified or given public comment at the state level, I don't recall having a disclaimer read for me. So it seems a little bit overkill.
I certainly very long. It is very long, but I think it's necessary, particularly the language about, I think it's necessary to have it on the record every time about like not naming students, not being abusive, not using profanity, which has come up with public comment before, but it's not acceptable on board meetings. In a perfect world, maybe it wouldn't be necessary to remind our speakers that these are our right rules, but I think that it's good to have it out there so that it's clear to anyone why there would be devils out there. I mean, I'm okay with it going out, with that part being done in some other format. For example, have it out by the sign-up sheet, or people who fill out the sign-up sheet have to check a box saying, yes, I reviewed the guidelines, like I'm familiar with these guidelines. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I feel very, very neutral about it. Like,
I think it's essentially necessary, because while some might be familiar with the process, we get many people who are not. It's important reminders, especially with regards to student confidentiality.
Yeah,
I think that those those issues are essential.
I do think the way speaking,
And it takes
for myself,
that takes like 30 seconds.
I know.
I'm not sure that actually has anything to do with the concern about getting business done.
but speaking only for myself, I think that the way it gets read by me does not necessarily inform people who are sitting there in the audience. It's kind of like the when flight attendants do their whole spiel about like the oxygen mask and whatever, like nobody.
For those that hear it, yes, but for those who have never heard it before, it's important information.
Yeah.
We do provide it at the sign-in over there, and then it's on the online one too, right? Just for reference.
Christina.
I think that for me is it's very word. So to make it efficient to what we want to get, I think that it's not necessarily affected as it is, or so I don't know if there's a way to compact something and so that when you read it out loud,
yeah,
it is, and to the point of like this is the era of bullet points.
Yeah.
So if you want people to actually follow this, that should be.
I'm happy to take another stab at it and try and like simplify it and cut it way down.
I think that
because honestly, I don't think people are really getting that much out of it.
I think that even if you put it like how as it is out there, nobody will look at it.
Yeah. We could project it on the screen while the person's reading it. Like if it's bullet points.
But the same, yeah, yes.
Yeah.
To respond to the point about student confidentiality, during my nearly 4 years on the board, I cannot recall a single public comment where that's been a concern. So it seems like so many things, like it's a bit of a red herring. Obviously, very important to protect, but in terms of actually putting confidential student records at risk, I can't recall a comment during my nearly 4 years. If you have, please share.
That's because the warning is red.
I don't think so. I think it's common
It is
sense.
absolutely red before. every
Really,
public
you
comment.
think people have reconsidered their comments because they heard the disclaimer?
No, but I think that if you hear it often enough, you probably are like, oh, I was going to talk about my friend's child, Joe Smith, but maybe I won't mention his name. Christina. Why don't I take another stab at it and simplify it down a bit? It's already gotten longer, shorter, longer. We can try shorter again, and then we'll look at it next time, right? Because
yes,
we can.
we'll just put it on the agenda next time so everyone can take a look at it. And then if people like the new improved shorter version, we can add it to the consent agenda for the following meeting.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
I think it's really valuable to have the part in the statement that explains why board members are not responding to comments. And so that, I think that's good to know, so that, you know, like, I think that's a really valuable part. And I think that it's just a good to have a reminder to public comments of what our expectations are of behavior, civil behavior. Sure, from our speakers.
I do think that that part is useful because I have seen new people come into comment for the first time and kind of expect a dialogue and kind of, you know, so at least.
Okay, and to be also a little bit clear, so like, I understand the quality, and at the same time, what is presented to the public, something that it is easy to read.
Yes. Yes. I also think we don't have to explain about the translator thing because that has never come up in my 6 years on the board. I've never had someone say I need an interpreter. So like certainly if it comes, we give the person extra time. Like that's just common sense. Like that can be in the policy, but not the readout thing. Right. You know, if we need to. Okay. Okay. That's the plan for that. And we've already had public input and we have board policy 1800 OE1, student focused fundamentals, fundamental 1, personalized learning. It's an action item. It is ends monitoring.
We have 2 fundamentals tonight and then 2 that will come to you at your next board meeting. And so as we discussed last year, we waited until we had the data from our various inputs, whether or not that's the EES survey and or others. And so Assistant Superintendent Williams is here to walk us through some of the observations from Fundamental 1. And then we'll also do Fundamental 5 tonight. So turn it over to you.
Thanks. So I just put together some highlights in the slide deck. You have obviously the reports in board docs, but I wanted to make sure that I included some things here. So the first slide that I wanted to start with was just the characteristics of high performing schools and just the nod to the percent positive longitudinal piece over the last 3 years and the growth in most categories there. So I just wanted to include that so you can see that piece. And you'll see those same kind of graphics as we go through now. We'll go through each of those categories here. Bullets meant basically just to provide you the written format of that. However, the graphics represent the same numbers that you can see in there. And those were part of your dashboard that's in board docs. So in this particular category, we've had some continued progression in some of those categories. So family ratings went up in this particular category. Students continue to remain just about the same and consistently staying in that same 4.0 area over that. Staff reflection is also continuing to remain strong as strong students. So the improvement there for the families as opposed to the other two. Individualized and engaged learning. This one, we've got ratings around, there's a series of questions around student success in the survey. And that has certainly been a focus over the last few years in just broadcasting student voice that we've been talking about. So we do see some stagnancy in some of these numbers, but a couple of them have gone up. Our staff went down just slightly. Students remains the same, and then families have gone up. Safe and supportive learning environment. So same thing here, we've seen some growth, some stagnancy. So growth with families in particular around that idea of additional help if you need some additional support for your students, that there is access to that within our schools. And then the others are relatively similar and are continuing to be worked on. Quality teachers and instruction. This one, if we look at these questions across and we see them about they're about the students, and then we have some family pieces at the tail end. So the first couple questions there are about our students and how they perceive it, and then the parent perception after that point. So same, these are trending positively or not a whole lot at this point.
You know?
No, I do not. Next slide. Thanks. Family and community engagement, in terms of progress. We saw an uptick, a slight uptick in that, but not necessarily too much. What I will say though, overall that we saw happen is this year we had a significant jump in respondents. So that was really nice to see. 325 staff responses, which previously was 272, and then students up to over 2,100. Last year it was 1,900, so we gained a couple there. And then families, we saw a pretty big jump from 935 up to 1,220 is what I have on mine. I think that number is wrong. So this is a different graphic of those characteristics you saw on the very first slide where we see the line bar. This one is just representing the increase, the differential in that percentage positive. The stars are, it's hard to see those numbers in the report, but those stars there are just meant to indicate percent positive increases. So the one where it was just a little bit was effective leadership, but still positive gains, and the others were considered more significant. So you can see those as well. So same characteristics, and these are our student numbers. So again, we saw growth in these. Some of them were not as high as others. So clear and shared focus, high standards and expectations, and the community involvement piece there grew, but not extensively. And we saw greater growth in those three categories: effective leadership, supportive learning environment, and monitoring of teaching and learning. Same here. So this one's the staff one. Staff is, of course, perceptual data based on our teachers of those same pieces, those same characteristics. This one is a little bit different. It went seemingly down from the prior year. So we had some significant jumps in 2024. And then several of those numbers went down over the last year. As was talked about earlier, there were some additional questions that were added in relation to self-home preschools. So I'm going to show you a series of slides here that are just about the different groups that were asked these questions. So obviously with parents, students, and staff, these were asked of students who have this experience. And then you can see, just as a reminder for these graphics, the blue tones are the percent positives. Whether it's light or dark, it's just where they rated it. That gray is what they call the area of opportunity in Center for Educational Effectiveness, which would be the group that's most easily swayed when we're trying to make change. And then, of course, the orange is the negative, seldom true or almost never true. So by and large, parents felt fairly positively about that change or neutral about that change. As we flip to the next one, this is not a surprise, I think, probably to anybody, is that kids didn't feel the same. But it was at least large. We have over 50% really that are seeing it as a positive change, but certainly there's a different perspective from the kids. And the staff clearly very much approves of that change. And so that I imagine in their classrooms, just the change of not having those cell phones in front of kids all the time is really supportive of ensuring that they have that continued focus toward the learning that's happening in those classrooms.
So the numbers are so ambiguous like this.
Hard to tell if they liked it or not, I'm not sure. So on the next slide, there are just some themes that I wanted to make sure that I called out in terms of this, and just also called out the things that we're doing to work on them. So some things, if we look at our educational effectiveness survey, that show up, whether it's in staff or parents or students. One of those things is social emotional training. You heard Dr. Rundle speak a little bit about Second Step in our child protection unit. That is part of what we do in our elementaries. And we have some additional things that happen in the middle and high school, more associated with PBIS and things like that. But this is part of a fully developed MTSS structure. So once that's fully realized, then we would hope to have seen that all of our staff members are extensively trained in doing that work in their classrooms. Our elementaries focused a bit on that last year and are continuing to do so as they go forward because they are paying attention to that number as well. And of course, significantly concerned if people don't feel like they have what they need in order to be fully equipped to support kids. Quick K-12 curriculum alignment came up across the board in lots of different places, particularly with staff, of course, who would know that information. We last year embarked on what we call a GVC, which is Guaranteed and Viable Curriculum. And a team of teachers put together that tool that basically outlines meant to support new teachers and teachers who've been working here so that they can see how do we fit all of the pieces together in the different tools that we have. There are a lot of tools. And it's a lot of pressure to try to fit all of that in. So it provides some guidance for teachers on what to do, when to do it, and where to sort of fit things within their year. On our docket are tier 1 reviews, and tier 1 language-wise basically means full class instruction. So what kids are getting on a daily basis is tier 1 instruction. And so those reviews will be happening in the secondary grade levels as we move forward. One other thing that emerged in different groupings was just the belief that all learners can meet standard. So with this part of obviously the focus that you have heard over the last several years with Dr. Rundle at the helm are around those 4 Bs. And one of those is the belief in all students, that potential for our learners. And that is something that we are pressing quite a bit as we go out and do professional learning. And those MTSS structures are really meant to support all kids. When we push in to provide those services, it allows students to feel more comfortable in their space so that they don't feel like they are different or othered, so to speak, as compared to other students. The other theme here was parent and guardian engagement. And as a teaching and learning team, we've already been talking about some of the things we'll do as a teaching and learning team to support families in giving them opportunities to just communicate with us and share concerns, learn about what we do, learn about how to support their kids. That is something that has been expressed throughout the data that families would like to know is how do I support my kid at home with the work that they're doing. That's the fundamental one piece. Do you want to pause there for any?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
That you don't have to go back in the slides, but you had me thinking about yonder pouches.
Yeah.
For families whose kids have lost their yonder pouches, I didn't see that there was any place in the in the RSVP process to pay money for your kids lost yonder pouch, which might be happening in my household. Just get back to school.
For a friend.
Hypothetically, I think parents out there are all curious. Now, is there going to be some sort of like announcement, or do kids just go back to school and then figure it out?
Probably fees and photos.
Day,
Fees and
or
photos day, okay.
when you're checking in. So they'll go through all of that when you're getting laptops checked out or iPads, or since we don't collect them every year, they re-up those to demonstrate they still have it. So
Yeah,
go
yeah.
through that.
It would be great for just talking about that zone of, I forget what we called it, but
Proximal development.
proximal development. It'd be great if for parents to see how much the teachers love it, because I know for me as a parent, knowing that the teachers are so happy with it, if I were kind of on the fence about it, I would be like, oh, I support anything that lets teachers teach my kid better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You want to? Did you have a question?
It's not really a question, it's more of an observation that I still, after seeing many of these, wonder if, I don't know, it just seems like there's so many things that are so stagnant. I just wonder if it's the best way to be monitoring these concerns. I don't have a suggestion for another one. I'm just throwing it out there that, you know, with the static numbers, especially with our students, and surveys, right?
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, I don't know if there's other tools or things that are out there that can really kind of dig into these answers in a much more in-depth.
Yeah, I will say that, so one of our principals who comes to talk with mine, Megan Isaacson, they did a separate survey that was connected to the data out of these. So oftentimes what our principals will do is look at their data, identify a particular area where there is a lower score that they want to target, And then in Megan's case, they built a survey for kids that was kid friendly so that they could check in on their social emotional well-being throughout the year. So they are doing those things. Agreed, you can't get it all out of here and see that improvement, as well as what we see is district-wide as I'm presenting now. So it's a little harder, but they see their school reports more specific. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure. Just a quick question, following up the example, I didn't know about West Mercer because I was part of the PAC. Yes, but do the other schools do something similar? And
It's really dependent on their school improvement plans. So where they said about their school improvement plans, and we worked with them just last week on this, putting together measurements of what will be their progress. So part of their school improvement plan requires that they have data that demonstrates the growth of their efforts. And so the different schools, I think Northwood and West had both done a student survey. I understand Island Park did something. I don't know if it was a student survey per se, but they have done different varieties of things to get that student input in terms of what's happening in their schools based on their school improvement plans. So
yeah, I like the data, but at the same time, not dividing it by grade level also loses some of that information that we're not seeing. So
yeah,
and also in the elementary in each particular school. So I think that in a way maybe to see some of that information that I have seen in Mercer that the others could see with that would be beneficial, but also like for example the cell phone policy is very different in middle school than high school.
Yeah.
So that I think that it does make sense. I think that yes. So we don't lose things that we could include.
Yeah, and the principals all have an account. We all, as district leaders, also have an account where we can go in and we can do lots of like looking at different things. So they get access to that too, in terms of being able to look by level or by demographics. So they can kind of disaggregate in lots of different ways, which is helpful for them.
And they look by building.
Yep. They don't necessarily get full access to everybody, I don't think.
Principals?
Yeah, I don't
They
think,
can see
do
each
they
other.
see everybody? So, but they can pin just their school and then look at just that data. And then they can do it by race, they can do it by gender, they can do it by services. It's all self-reported though, so it's based on what the kids say about themselves in the survey. Until last year, they just did a. Next one.
Before we go on to that one, action on this.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
Is there? Okay, do we?
I move that we find the superintendent in compliance with fundamental one.
All in favor of finding superintendent in compliance with fundamental one, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
And
Any abstentions? Okay, that is 4-1 to 0. I'm just not seeing the form, sorry. Where's it attached?
I don't see the monitoring. I didn't see.
There's not a, is there a monitoring?
You go to fundamental one
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So let's see, this is superintendent for interpretation.
Oh, the form itself, you
Yeah.
get a checkbox form, those are OEs, like, that's not, they're not, those don't show up for the OE ones because the fundamentals are broken into 5 different ones on the way.
Okay, thank you. Great. Let's do that.
Great. All right, go ahead. Maybe you could take this one next. Thank you. So this is just that quick overview, reminding everybody that this one is really about those inclusive environments and making sure that we're providing equitable spaces for kids to enter into. So as we go through that, keeping that in mind, the report itself then walks through a great deal of that in terms of numbers and services and access by race, ethnicity, gender. So the first one, there is the demographic evolution just of the district as a whole. If you can go ahead and click that one. So you see, I wanted to put this in a visual just as a representation because we've seen that shift over the years, but the visual is just really telling, I think, of how much the district has changed in the last 6 years. And so seeing that growth of all of the different
categories and the demographics here and the changes there have evolved our district quite a bit. So I think it just really demonstrates that ongoing transformation of the district as a whole system.
I ask about this all the time. Is 2 or more races, is that a separate category or is that overlapping with, for example, Hispanic students or Asian students?
So it's a separate category, but they also ask if one of yours is Hispanic or Latino. So it's sort of.
So the Hispanic student number should be like quite accurate because it's capturing both students who are like, I don't know, the word is not a racial universal. I mean, nobody really is, but and then also the multiracial kiddos. But then it's possible that somebody might be, for example, Asian and Black and then not counted. And if they count themselves as 2 or more races, they're not getting counted as Asian or Black, correct?
On this one, because it's the federal side. And that's why some of the groups you've been part of where I've showed how the states broken it down, and now there's like 300 different ways to identify it.
Yeah.
We can give a lot more. This is just based on the federal.
This is the federal definition. Okay, thank you.
Right, next one. Program and course demographics. So we're going to start with our highly capable program. That's our next one. I showed you the gender is over here on the side in the numbers, female, male. I mean, historically that has just evolved, and we've added non-binary in here as well. And so you can see that breakdown. It has typically been fairly 50-50 in the last several years over time. Race, ethnicity, and just seeing that breakdown, you can see the increase here of students of Asian descent and students who identify as white are declining. All other races are captured in that other category to have the numbers quantified in that.
So again, because this is a demographic, we have a lot of on the island. If someone were white and Asian, they would be into the other categories.
Yeah. All right, next one. Academic course access. I just had an opportunity to have a conversation about this today, so it was really rightly timed. So talking about those academic course accesses, specifically at the high school, when we think about honors and AP, special services, or just services in general, and trying to identify whether or not our students in particular services, i.e. 504 services or special education services or ELD services, if they qualify for any one of those services, what is their participation in honors and or AP? And so looking at this, I will say that if we take a look at some of our growth in AP, we're seeing a bit of growth there. Honors for students with special education IEPs, we don't see as much growth there. And I was just chatting with our special services director about that today, and the two coaches that work alongside her to support students at the high school. So they're going to be working with our high school this year. And those two coaches both have secondary experience, one of her passion areas is ensuring access to honors and AP for our students who have IEPs. So I think that will be exciting, and hopefully we'll find some great gains in that over the next couple of years. So strategic priorities in terms of this piece, clearly I think we need to continue having representation in our advanced programs from a variety of different groupings of students. That is an area where we are not necessarily on target with what we should see in relation to the demographic spread of the students in our district. So the special education students in particular, and trying to ensure that they have equitable access into our classrooms. Continued professional development toward that end. Cultural celebration, that shows up actually quite a bit in the EES, interestingly. And so we get a lot of information there, suggesting that we're doing a great deal there, but just trying to do more always. And then maintaining that data monitoring for those indicators. Athletic and extracurricular participations were a little harder to kind of include in all of the pieces, but you have those in the full report as well. So that you can see those were included after the end of last year, so that you could see all of those. So that's it.
Thanks.
Cortex should have the end at the end, so you know.
Yes. So tell me if it's in another place, because I can't think of it. So I like getting this information. I can't remember how long we have, but in terms of the academic part, course access, with the honors and the AP, there's other academic opportunities for our students that provide extra rigorous, you know, for example, all of our dual credit options that provide college credit and things like that. And I just wonder, would this be an appropriate place to add that? Because I think, you know, there's and we have a lot of them, and it's fantastic that we have so many kids that want to do AP and honors, but we also have a lot of kids that seek other accelerated opportunities. And I feel like we're missing that story with not including, whether it's dual credit or the other courses that have, like, what's the right word, with the, like, the senior level at, you know, kind of their capstone project type classes. Because I just feel like that would be, you know, there's lots of ways to measure a student and their rigor and their success. And I just feel like that, like, if we're really looking at the whole child, and if our students on 504, you know, tend to get drawn more towards, you know, project-based learning, and a lot of the dual credit opportunities are those areas, whether or not we're really, like, I would suggest that I'm interested in seeing, how our students are choosing and then benefiting from that type of rigor.
So a little bit of fundamental 2, which captures that, but broken out by not just numbers of students who are taking them, but what's the demographic of those students is really, I think, what I think maybe what you're suggesting. But we can definitely take a look at 2 and 5 and see what that crossover might look like.
Sure. And I will add to that, like, for example, the highly capable program. I am sure that maybe there's some parents that opt out on highly capable that are not like that. Maybe that is why the demographics are not representative to the ones in the district. And then there's the difference between being 32 or 33 in elementary. So this is not represented here, and I think that there's a lot more story on before we figure out a way to ensure that other students have other opportunities.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of opt-outs for highly capable, maybe 1 or 2 a year, but I can see what you're saying in terms of we have a lot of high achieving students. And so just that programmatic piece doesn't mean that those are the only students who can achieve at that high level.
I think Running Start would be another area beyond dual credit for students to be high achieving.
Yeah.
There's also like separate from that is like the college credits for some language classes. Like
No, is that different from dual credit?
Is that different from dual credit, or is that considered dual credit?
That's considered credit.
That is considered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch of areas.
If they take advantage, let's say, of the seal of biliteracy, because they have a language that we don't offer, but they're demonstrating proficiency, that would be another example of pretty high level achievement.
Yeah.
Now, we can't take credit for that. But there are other aspects of it that students are bringing that demonstrate what they know and are able to do at a high level.
And same as, let's have no more questions. Okay. Same as last time.
I moved, we fund the superintendent in compliance of board policy 1800 OE1 fundamental 5.
Second.
All in favor of that she just said, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? 500. Thank you so much. Next, we have Sorry, just one thing really quickly, and this is not for now, but this is just for you, Fred. The fundamentals for 1 and 5, like those were from before you took over as superintendent, correct? Like,
The-
from 5 is what you're getting to,
Yeah, so number 5, for instance, was number 7.
right?
Once upon a time.
Right.
Because we've had we started with 9,
Yeah.
then we went to 12, then
Right.
we went to 7, and now we're at 5.
Yes.
The 5 has been consistent ever since I've been superintendent. Different new interpretations or amendments may or may not have been made, but
Yeah.
yes, it's been the 5 for my 3 going on 4 years.
Yeah, well, I did notice that, for both fundamentals, it says superintendent interpretation, and, this is, last, revised in, 2020. So I would love to see your interpretations more than, previously.
Yeah, same, just to encourage you to like not, don't be shy about looking at your own when you have the bandwidth to do it. So, okay, last item in this section is board policy 1003, board job description, discussion on remonitoring of board policies. So we last looked at this in April, and we proposed this is like hitting the snooze button. We proposed a remonitoring date for 90 days. So the question is, do we think that we're ready to go off monitoring? I would argue no, but I'm curious to hear what other people have to say. And then depending on the outcome of that discussion, are we interested in kind of hitting the snooze button again, or are we just going to acknowledge that with this board as it is currently composed, there's not likely to be a lot of change between now and December?
Yeah, I think the community is a good entity to monitor our compliance with policy and to be the judge of how we performed and that decision we made.
So, like voters, you mean?
Well, not just voters, I mean the entire community, those who vote, those who don't vote, those who can't vote, I mean, those who live in our community, pay taxes, attend our schools, send their kids to our
Sure, but this is self-monitoring.
Okay, I mean, we can talk about it. I'm happy to talk about it too. I mean, I think judgment is going to be a little bit more resounding when it's not the 5 of us chatting about ourselves.
That is literally
many
what
of us.
monitoring is.
Okay, I mean, and we can chat about that, but I mean, it would seem a little tone deaf when we've just heard a lot of comments about the board's conduct. And now I guess we're going to like have a discussion about whether an SAT policy proposal last November violated board policy and like my compliance with it.
I think it is a fundamental waste of time, but not all 5 board directors believe in policy governance and have stated as such to monitor, and I propose that it gets bumped to January.
I totally agree with that. Sorry.
I mean, remonitoring in January is kind of silly, but I propose that we not remonitor this, that it's disappointing that we can't be in full compliance of our governance model.
I actually think it should be remonitored in January. It should just be whenever it would naturally follow the cycle, because then that would give the next board a chance to agree with their, remember them? Okay. So, there's not action with this. So that's the plan. We will not be remonitoring. Okay. Next up, we have the consent agenda.
Yeah. I would like an item discussed on the consent agenda, which is item F to be pulled for discussion. We can also get that bumped to a later meeting, but about MIYFS counseling, because I think it also opens up some questions when we're talking about mandatory reporting and perhaps any systematic failures that should be explored before we approve this agreement.
I think this is, this is a business agreement that we need to approve so we get paid and so forth. Like, is there a second? Or we're moving this from the consent agenda? Okay, given no second, we're going to go ahead with the consent agenda as posted.
I move we approve the consent agenda as published.
Second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as published, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
That is 4-0. Okay, superintendent announcements. You got one?
The beginning of the year is coming quickly. Hopefully you all saw the Two kind of dates coming up for you all. One is next week, we have our new staff orientation who are coming into our school district. And correct me if I'm wrong, Director Miller, I believe you asked us to be there on which morning? Monday morning?
Monday,
8:30.
8:30. And then you are all.
Where are we?
North.
downstairs.
Yeah.
And then quiet, like dining.
Perfect. And then we have our all-staff barbecue that I invite you all to on the 25th of August at the high school. And that's around 12:20 is when we expect that. If you can start kind of showing up between 12 and 12:20, that would be great. And then first day of school is the 27th, and we have a board meeting on the 28th. And those are my updates.
Do we have a legislative report? It looks like we do.
Well, first, the, General Assembly is coming soon. I don't know who of us wants to participate. I said, but it's gonna be online. And I think that this one will be way shorter because the amendments are and the changes is substantially smaller than previous years. So I do expect that like maybe half a day that happen at the most. So I will be there, but I don't know who else would love to be there and possible pass the vote for our district. And
I have a school. What day is that? The 20th, Wednesday.
No, September 20th.
Oh, no, sorry. I'm looking at, oh, Saturday. Wait, I was.
Saturday, yes, Saturday, September 20th.
Assuming I'm not out of town, I'm happy to be there and be the voting delegate. I just am not 100% sure yet. I don't have specific plans right now, but
And
I intend to be there.
it's better if I'm not.
Yeah, no.
But at the same time, yeah, it's.
If it's on Zoom, I could do the backup. If you can't do it,
Yes, it is.
then I'll do it.
This year's on Zoom and it's gonna be a short.
What are the hours?
Eight to, well, it's listed as 8 to 5 or something, but.
I don't foresee that we will go over, actually.
And it's at CTAC in person.
So,
In person, if you
want to
know.
no, it's all online.
Oh, it is? Oh, I thought it was in person at CTAC.
No, also, no.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry, it's online. This year, it's also open online. So great, that's, yeah.
I will.
I'll be the
intend-
backup.
Thank you.
Yeah. I can, yes,
And the manual comes out next week.
yes,
Right.
yes. And you'll see like there's minimal changes unless, we want to create any amendment at times of, there's not much. And I think that the following week, there's gonna be a few taxes from what's going on, so if you wanna go, I would encourage to actually go and talk to her. I think that the value that I have seen, especially last Tuesday, that was the Ledge Network, is to actually talk to other districts and see what they're going through right now, because it is what it is. So being said that, there's also in coordination with the PTA to talk to our legislators. So last week we met with Senator. I know that the PTA did met with Steve Sam. I was not at that meeting, but I was at the Senator Wellness meeting last Monday, and today was with Representative Pye. Both meetings with Senator Wellman, I think that it came pretty much the same. There's not much for movement in this short session. But we know that because of the budget is set for 2 years. However, the recommendation is to keep advocating for the needs. I think that the move here is also related to MSOC. So today, during, with representative Thai meeting, doesn't go to my notes. There's some changes that were gonna happen as, through, the bill that passed at Washington, the beautiful bill, that will change Medicare, and since Medicaid, sorry, and since Washington State does have Apple Care, we're gonna reshift how things are gonna move. That being said, the marketplace of the state insurance is gonna be affected. So that means that our insurance is gonna be affected because we belong to that marketplace. So they said that to organize early with the other directors and saying like, what have been our increases and what are we seeing and what are we paying in terms of benefits, and talk directly to the insurance commissioner. So this is they're doing what they can on their side, but we have to bring the stories to the commissioner. And I think that that's going to be the way, and also directly to the governor's office to talk about the education budget, because it will affect in different ways on how things are going to be shuffled, and maybe not like there's like, for example, the special education budget is set in the general budget in the state that is allocated. However, like this one, will keep us indirect. And this is going to happen in different ways. So I think that we have to just keep talking and monitor, like with what things are being reshuffled, especially in this area where they're shuffling into the health area. That will hit not only our district but other districts in the area. That will also. So I think that's the biggest, and both of them suggest that a part to actually start meeting with the commissioner. Insurance commissioner. So, and the other is that there's other areas related that they're trying to protect related to special education Title I on how things are being reshuffled. So they're protecting as much as possible, and this is they're gonna fight. So they also need our stores to also keep pushing forward on what is happening, because otherwise it's harder for them to keep talking with the governor and with others. And what else? The other thing last, I think, is mostly the short session also is a supplemental for the previous session. For us, we also have to see it as a preparing for next session. Since each bill, it takes 2 to 3 years to develop, to start thinking how are we going to like help on the process of what are our needs and what we need to start advocating. And there's a lot of things that need to be changed, and some others that might not have direct that might not have economic impact. Maybe those are the ones we can advocate this year. That's the one and all. That's it.
I went to the one with Representative Zong, and that was it was really hopeful, frankly. I mean, I know she's a newbie, so she's excited and has no idea what she's getting into. But the main thing, I mean, we talked about all of the issues, and she's 100% in support of the schools. The one really interesting thing that I hope to explore with her further, and just want to let you know, I can't remember if I told you, but her background is building, and she's with the Port of Seattle, and she was instrumental in the new terminals and the construction management and all that. And so we were talking a lot about, she was asking about the bond and the bond pass rate, and then also with fundamental duty and how that doesn't actually include school buildings, and why is every district kind of in it alone rather than a model that can meet the needs of all districts. Understanding that's complicated, but she's got a lot of expertise and could be a really great partner to start having those conversations to see if there's a way that, like when you go in with builders and there's these, there's plans for a small, this and this and this, and then each district isn't spending the money on all of that developmental stuff and blah, blah, blah. So anyways, really interesting partner that she could really because she was asking about prototypical school model and things like that, where, she has no idea what she's getting herself into, but she's eager and she's smart, and it's just a great opportunity to build that relationship, and especially with the buildings, because that's such her area of expertise.
And for all of them, the invitation to visit our schools, and I think that the convention will happen. I think that September and early October is the best window for us, and especially for them, since right now they're actually reshuffling everything. So they are as busy as in long session, less busy, but they're really starting to work, but they will be preparing since they have to do a lot of shuffling and so.
Any updates, Director Martinez, or changes to the revenue forecast and what we might encounter in the legislative session? Did that come up at all, or was there loose conversation with that?
There was loose conversation. They said that they don't see any at all.
Okay.
But I think that I do think that both representatives are more optimistic in the sense that keeping the screening our stories and saying and pushing for this and pushing for change and bringing some ideas to the table might bring more change. I think the Senator Walnut was at the same time, I think that it's more truthful in the sense that like the deal might not move at all in this short session, but I think that through the other areas, like trying to see how we can move in the insurance or other areas that we know that we might be hit next year if the insurance rise again. To stop that from happening, that's I think that our avenue that we had to look at outside of the other. I don't know. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But at least I think that there's one step forward on talking to the commissioner.
Which is always what they say, though. I mean, they're setting expectations very low, which I get it.
But I am not optimistic.
No, absolutely.
I will say that I with the network, I think that I do like that now we're doing breakout rooms and being able to network with districts that are in rural areas. I think that now we can connect and actually go and advocate like this is the story from both sides, and this is how it's looking both sides. So it's not, although it's Mercer Island, we're advocating for it, but it looks very similar in other areas. So the more united we are in that front, the easier it will be to do something. I think that it's, yeah.
Erin, were you raising your hand? Yeah, so this is not necessarily on this topic. I was doing a little research. I have a little bit of concern just going back to the consent agenda item. I think typically an item cannot be removed from agenda after the agenda has been approved by the board, but in our board policy 1420, there is a reference to consent agenda, and the basic purpose of a consent agenda is to recognize routine matters in the expeditious manner. Any item that appears on the consent agenda may be removed at the request of a singular board member and instead and inserted at an appropriate place on the regular meeting agenda. Any board member may request an item be temporarily removed from the consent agenda in order to ask questions or make a statement. So I think a single board member could remove an agenda item to insert it in the regular agenda. It just took me a bit to confirm that because it's a little different specific for a consent agenda items. Right. It's different and you have to do it out of the gate for non-consent agenda items. So I just wanted to do the research. I'm sorry to sort of derail the conversation, but I just wanted to go back and say that I think that Director Glowis could unilaterally move the item from the consent agenda. I just needed some time to check.
So we already approved the consent agenda.
So it wouldn't, but
So my question is, can we retroactively have them remove it then?
Yeah, because he should have been allowed to remove it, so everything else would be approved.
Right.
I would suggest that you revote to see if it should change Director Glowis' vote on the consent agenda as amended. So you basically vacate the last vote and you take off the item that he wanted removed. I think that might be the most logical thing to do. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. Can we just, for the sake of continuity, finish the
board
Yeah,
reports.
and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I appreciate you getting to us. So we'll finish board reports and then we'll go back and then do that. Did you have anything else for legislative?
No, yes, no.
Okay, let's just go through, I mean, I can't imagine people want board report stuff. But.
I just want to say that, you know, this week's been challenging. I just want to express my appreciation to the staff, while you're trying to get ready for a new school year that is happy and exciting and we can't wait. That hopefully that feeling will come back soon.
Thank you. Do you have anything for board report, regular board reports?
I think, I do wanna, go back to what I stated before, that, to maybe have a committee to review, the child safety and how the mandatory report works in the district. I think that it would be beneficial for our community to see what steps are being done in both ways. And I do think this is an opportunity to see what can be strengthened from our point of view as a district, as a board, to improve those policies that exist in our district, and what is if not also outside. I think that is also.
Would you like to? Are you proposing that we add that to say the next agenda to have a discussion about that? Because that's a kind of bigger, just kind of a topic unto itself. If you want to see if anyone supports doing that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Is there interest in doing that? Like I don't, mandatory reporting is just this thing. It's just like state law. It's not going to operate any differently in the district than it does anywhere else in Washington State. But as far as like looking at what we do, proactively and in response.
I think that, and for me, I think it is, and I said it before, I think that it is, I do think that this is the case in every case. Like there's always opportunities for learning, and this is an opportunity for learning. So taking this, and I think that this is opportunity not only extended to this situation, but also when I say mandatory reporting is once we call child protection services, there's other instances that we need to see how are we protecting also that child for being to feel this, if they're already in this situation, that they feel the aggression again, even if we are protecting them. So what is in place and what can we make better to protect them? So I feel that's our job. And it's a matter of saying, is everything in place? Yes. Then okay, but if we can improve, why not take this opportunity? And that's what I'm saying. Like, let's take this opportunity.
Judy and then Heather.
And earlier we had tasked Fred with maybe getting back to us on what they were doing already.
That was specifically in like curriculum. Okay. What are they teaching students? Okay. Fair enough. So let's
But adding the training and the mandatory reporting.
Yeah.
As they go through, they just maybe get both that.
Can you, Fred, would you be willing to fold all of those topics in? And like, because I see it will make it a bigger chunk.
But I think that has already delivered that.
My request would be, can I meet with Director Martinez, learn more about what that looks like in that interest, kind of carve that out and then come back with what we kind of think, what you're thinking on that. And then, because I want to make sure that I fully hear what it is in terms of that. And so maybe we can meet on that.
Yes.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that, like, I'm hearing not necessarily the mandatory reporters, because anyone who goes through the training, not that they do it perfectly, but goes through the training again and again and understands what their requirements are, or the intention is they understand the requirements. It sounds to me like you're more interested in hearing how our schools are supporting our students who kind of are the subject or needing to be reported to. No.
Correctly the other way around. I think it's.
But what is the board's, well, you can have that discussion with that. Then never mind.
I think that, yes, that's how it
sounds great. I'm always in favor of like looking at ways to make things safer for kids.
I am.
Okay.
Again, any?
Yeah. I imagine in the coming days and weeks, the community will have many questions, but let me end tonight's meeting, at least my comments, with 3 questions. Did Twombly have a Snapchat account? Were you aware of this when the decision to fail to notify the community was made? 2, is the school district going to make public its own investigative report? 3, was city leadership notified shortly before the story broke? Why?
We don't still need to answer those right at this moment, but those are 3 questions that have been posed. Got anything else? Or board reports?
No.
Jake?
As we predicted, it's been quiet for the summer. I got to go to the Pride in the Park, the rescheduled Pride in the Park celebration, in the beginning of August, and it was lovely. I think these kinds of things are just getting bigger and more attended every year. I mean, it helped a lot that the rescheduled Pride in the Park celebration was on before music in the park. So they just started earlier, and I didn't stay for the music, but the Pride in the Park part seemed very celebratory and like a lovely environment.
Great. I've got nothing. So that ends board reports. So now we're going to go back to the consent agenda. And Dan, do you want to motion again to take the, or do you want to ask to take that item off? So yes, this time, and then we'll revote.
Yes, I move that we take item 5, G, or 5F on the consent agenda.
That will now go into section 6.
Right, I don't know the consent agenda. We're just going backwards today. Okay, so there's no vote needed on that. We now are corrected and was. So so now we will re-vote on the consent agenda. So do I have a motion to vote on the consent agenda minus that item?
I move to approve the consent agenda without.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the consent agenda minus item F, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? No, so the consent agenda now passes unanimously. And so now item 6 is this item removed from the consent agenda, which is the city district interlocal agreement, the school counselors agreement. You want to kind of like introduce this, Fred?
Sure. This is the annual interlocal agreement that in this instance, the city votes on first, and then we will follow up. Amendments this year were just to dates and the general services. Reminder, we have 2 new counselors at the middle school coming into the middle school this year, and the other counselors at the 4 elementaries, and then our 2 high school counselors remain the same.
Will we get to meet the new counselors at some point?
We can certainly bring them. We don't typically bring them there because they're city
They're
staff.
city staff,
But
okay.
when we're at the schools this year, we can, because I believe we're at the middle school this year. So,
I mean, it's
yeah.
Or they could come to the city council thingy meeting, you know, like each session. Either way. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that we should there needs to be an investigation and into what adults knew or may have known or had reasonable suspicion to know about Mr. Twombly over the years and decades. And we just mentioned in comments today that adults that students should go to, first and foremost, I think was mentioned, was their counselors, which I think is a reasonable place. So when you have a teacher that's been in the district for a quarter century and is probably engaged in numerous inappropriate interactions with dozens, if not hundreds of students over those years, it's reasonable to ask what adults knew. And I think, and to go to my third question, Fred, you told the board in email that city leadership was notified before the story broke. I want to know why.
I don't see the relevance of your concern with.
My concern is that we have
Can I finish my sentence? I don't see the relevance of your concern with this particular contract.
My concern is that we may.
I understand your concern.
Okay, then you understand the concern.
Right, yes.
Are you
I just
suggesting
with
that
this
we would
contract.
not sign the contract because you believe there's more investigating that needs to be done? Is that what you're suggesting?
I think that it would be a rush to approve a contract before we look into whether there were areas such as maybe the English department, others, where you had adults who should have said something who didn't.
But that doesn't have anything to do with the counselor.
I don't want counselors who may, and I do not know if they do, but particularly like who may be given information or in a trusting relationship with a child and condone or implicit and not saying that it's problematic behavior.
Just to be clear, every counselor is a licensed mental health therapist. They're all mandated reporters. And like, I just don't, like, are you saying we should be looking through their therapy records to see if?
Well, I think like, how many students probably received services from MIYFS? That would be a reasonable question. How many individuals had a relationship with Tom Lee in MIYFS?
Okay, so this is irrelevant as far as approving this contract. So does someone have a motion? Sorry, Jody, did you want to say something?
I just think that, any conjecture as to our youth and family services counselors not fulfilling their mandated reported duty is completely just that, like conjecture out of the blue. And any numbers thrown around of like dozens or even hundreds of potential victims is also numbers created out of the blue. So I just want to make that absolutely clear that those don't have any basis in fact, or extrapolation that I can even imagine. Well, so I'm still speaking. So I just want to make clear that imagining the worst case possible scenario of some sort of like Pizzagate situation going on in the English department is not based in reality and is not something. Of course, we all take this seriously, the subject matter very, very seriously. And I think we do a disservice to any potential victims that might be out there when we start imagining this like fantastical scenario of professionals who have never shown us to be anything but professionals, like in our counseling services, of just widespreadly not doing their jobs for fun.
Right, and I do think, given how much we rely in our district on these wonderful counselors to work with our kids, and these are the trusted adult for a lot of kids, that to kind of hold their contract hostage and not approve it because of some like imagined catastrophic scenario just makes no sense at all. It's just, I can't even say anything. It just makes no sense. Does anyone have a motion?
I move that we approve the 25-26 MIYFS Mercer Island School District Counseling Interlocal Agreement.
Second. All in favor of approving the interlocal agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Anyone abstaining?
Abstain.
4-0 to 1. Okay, and with that, we and adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 All opposed? That is 5-0. We are done. 8:02.